Champion Square, the playground of the city. This is the hottest destination for shopping, entertainment, and great food. The festivities are on in San Francisco. But the big question is, will Christmas come early for Magnus Carlsen, or will Pragnananda celebrate with a win over the world champion? A thrilling day of chess coming up. Welcome to the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour.
Unbelievable how he finds that move.
We've got to call that Prag style. He's going to win the tournament. He's going to show the checkmate to us.
Wow.
He's taken it.
He's done it.
Magnus really looking happy with himself.
It's going to be checkmate.
Magnus shaking his head.
Oh, look at the bar.
3 seconds.
1 second.
Make a move.
Whoa, okay, crazy tactics. This is just one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen.
This is a Duda move, isn't it? Direct.
Wow, he's going straight for the kill.
He is out to win this tournament.
This is so difficult.
Whoa! Oh!
No way.
What is Anish Giri doing here?
Oh!
He's just given up his knight for a pawn. Is this, I mean, either this is genius or it's a mouse slip.
Wait. This move is breaking the rules.
Magnus Carlsen is furious. What is happening? I wonder if the Tanner family is home, and if they are, they need to turn on the chess because there will be action happening inside Shack 15 today. It's Magnus Carlsen against Pragnananda, and if Magnus wins the match in the rapid portion today, he will be the winner of the tour finals. So it could be a big day ahead of us, and to guide you through it, as always, International Master Jovanka and Grandmaster David Howell. And what do you think, David? Will Prag be able to stop Magnus Carlsen, or will we see the winner of the finals today?
Well, it's a big day. Magnus will want to wrap it up now, but if anyone can, Prag can. He has beaten Magnus several times throughout the tour this season, and he is capable. Both players will be going all out for the kill, and it's going to be really dramatic. Anything's still possible.
And another huge match will be Wesley So against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Duda knows if he wins today and Magnus loses, he can decide it all tomorrow and win the tour finals.
Yeah, he has everything to play for. The heat is on. But I have to say, Wesley So is a big rival of Jan-Krzysztof Duda. So we're going to see a lot of action on the board. So it's just to buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. And action is exactly what we got yesterday. 2 matches went all the way to Armageddon.
And even 20 minutes here wouldn't help Liam. The position is very simplified. Those 2 white pawns together are just going to start stepping forward. Black also has severe weaknesses on this right side, and Magnus is going to cash in now on those weaknesses. This is just technical. This is very straightforward now. Magnus would win this in his sleep. Those 2 pawns cannot be stopped long term.
The caterpillar formation is in action.
Yeah, just inch forward, step by step. The white king comes forward. Nothing to be done. White's pawns are almost there now, and Liam does resign.
Wow, it's over. Magnus takes the first point in the Blitz tiebreak.
And meanwhile, the players are ticking around the 1-minute mark.
And I hear that's what's happening. Yeah.
Pragnananda game.
Should we jump over?
We should jump over. This game might still go for quite a while.
We're going into Armageddon between Duda and Prag. Duda started with more time. He has to win this game to win the match. A draw is enough for Prag.
Less than 10-second difference between the 2.
And he has to make sure he does not repeat the position 3 times because the game will be automatically declared a draw.
And there's drama! Liam Lee has suddenly won the second Blitz game against Magnus Carlsen to take that one to Armageddon. Oh!
He blunders into a repetition of the position. It's a draw.
Prag wins the match in Armageddon with a draw in that final game. He takes 2 points against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. The Armageddon with Magnus will start very shortly. Yeah, here he comes.
And we'll see the moves come flying on the board. Oh, wow, he really does push his rook forward and capture. Normally you want to keep pieces on the board, and Liam now complicates the issue by throwing his pawn forward. Now his idea is to go for checkmate. He's going for the white king. And Magnus, he's reasserted control. Everything's defended. Okay, he grabbed another pawn. It's just, it was like hungry hippos. Magnus grabbed 1 pawn, another pawn, another pawn, another pawn. All of Black's pawns have disappeared, and Liam, rather than try and race on the clock, he has resigned. Magnus takes the win.
Wow, what a dramatic match. It ends up with a win for Magnus Carlsen in Armageddon. That meant 2 points for Magnus Carlsen, 1 point for a hard-fighting Liam Le, 2 points also for Prague, and 1 point for Jan-Krzysztof Duda in dramatic Armageddon tie-breaks. It was 3 points for Wesley So beating Mamadjarov and 3 points for Ergaisi beating a struggling Anish Giri. But it was the drama in the tie-breaks that took all the attention yesterday. And Magnus 2 points, 1 point for Jan-Krzysztof Duda means that Magnus now has a 4-point lead down to Jan-Krzysztof Duda now with 2 matches left to play. And they will face each other on the very final day, Carlsen and Duda. So David, what are the scenarios here right now?
Well, there are still several scenarios. We could still see, even as far down as Liam, in 4th place, winning the tournament. He will need results to go his way, however, and it's these two who do have their fates in their own hands. If Magnus wins today, he wins the tournament. If Magnus doesn't win in the Rapid, if it goes to tie-breaks, then Duda has a chance if he wins against Wesley in the Rapid and beats Magnus tomorrow without tie-breaks as well. So Duda needs a helping hand from Magnus. He has to hope Magnus slips up today. But if Duda doesn't win, if Wesley takes him down, then Wesley still has a chance on the final day. It's all lots of permutations here, but it's all still to play for.
So Magnus knows if he wins in the Rapid today, he will win the Tour finals. Yes. Will that affect him at all, do you think?
It might affect some of his decision-making when the middle game gets really tense, as it will today. At some point, Magnus might risk. He might go for it. He might go for gold. He knows he still has a safety blanket. He knows even a loss today will give him a chance to win tomorrow. So I do have a feeling Magnus isn't going to play it safe. That's just not his style.
And he had a perfect tournament until yesterday, where he lost his first game of the tournament and he lost his first points, even if he won in tie-breaks. What do you think, will that affect him at all?
Possibly. We heard yesterday, Magnus, he wanted to go perfect. He wanted to win every match. And he does have these very high standards for himself. And there will be this little bit of doubt in his head. Just the way it happened yesterday, not just messing up in the Rapid games, but also in the Blitz when he was so close, Magnus. He let it slip at the end. He did win the Armageddon, but some small mistakes are starting to appear in his game.
Yeah. And today is a big day in the Tour finals. Let's take a look at the matchups coming up on day 6. Jan-Krzysztof Duda, he is looking to win against Wesley So, but both of these two players can still win the Tour finals. They need to win that match today. Liam Le, he's on a roll, and today he plays against Arjun Ergaisi, who has now won 2 matches in a row. Anish Giri, struggling big time. He's sitting in San Francisco. Today up against another player struggling, that's Shakhriyar Mamadjarov. But we will follow from the start. Prague, at 17 years old, against Magnus Carlsen. If Magnus wins in the Rapid, he will win the Tour finals. But if anyone can stop him, David, arriving here at Shack 15, Magnus, it must be Prague. We've seen it several times.
Exactly. And it normally tends to be when Magnus has a lot to play for. That's when Prague takes him down. And it's no longer mathematically possible for Prague to win the tournament, so the pressure's off him. He can just relax and focus on trying to beat the world #1 yet again. It's happened before.
There he is, Magnus Carlsen, in the streets of San Francisco, fighting now to win his 5th tournament this season on the Tour and to win the Tour finals. He is already the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022.
Of course we know who Magnus Carlsen is. He's the greatest chess player in the world, is he not? How will you summarize your performance on the tour this season?
I would say the performance has been mainly good, but the thing is that I've played very well from home.
Magnus is in suffocation mode. He's that python wrapping around the victim.
And then quite a bit worse when I'm not at home, so I have to sort of break the trend here. Also last year I didn't do so well in the finals, so I feel like I still have a lot to prove.
Wesley's the champion.
Wesley is here, which is super motivating for me. He just won the global championship in great style, and he hasn't played on the tour in a year. Now with the big win he got recently, it's important to show him who's the boss.
The world champion loses to 16-year-old Pragnananda. Look at Prague.
Playing Prague has been super stressful for for me it's been very interesting. But he's so unafraid. He's just so relentless. He just keeps coming for me every time. So that's been tough.
Magnus Carlsen wins the Charity Cup. Now look at that. It's nice to see that smile.
What are your plans and hopes for this coming year?
Well, first of all, there's the World Rapid and Blitz. I mean, currently I have 0 World Championship titles, so I hope to win back a couple of those. When it comes to the World Championship match, I'm not regretting that for a moment. I'm very, very happy to let the World Championship have sort of a life of its own without me.
What a season it's been for Magnus Carlsen. At times he's simply been dominant. He's lurking around a tour rating of 2,900. He'd had several times performance rating above 3,000. How impressed are you with Magnus this season, Jovanka?
He's been very impressive, and I really have been struck by sometimes how he starts off badly, but it doesn't let that faze him at all. Instead, he just continues and just gets better and better. And at times, he makes it look so easy. And you have to remember, he is playing against some of the finest chess players in the world and some of the most relentless, talented juniors, and he just sweeps them all away.
Definitely. And this season, well, Magnus has been dominant. He secured the victory in the tour overall already in the previous tournament. But last season, it was a tough fight for Magnus against Wesley So the whole season. Wesley's not going to win the tour this season, but he could win the tour finals. And let's hear from Wesley before his fight today against Jan-Krzysztof.
What do we expect from this matchup?
Well, it's going to be fast. It's going to be fast and breathtaking, I must say.
All right.
Jan is a very strong player. I think he's in second place right now. Jan, he won his first 3 matches. Yesterday it didn't go his way, but he beat Anish. You know, he beat like Wang, I believe. So I'm really thrilled and exciting. And yeah, I did some blitz warm up today, and then I played username online with somebody called Sinister Magnus. So I wonder who that is, and he crushed me. So hopefully I did all my losses already in the warm-up.
Well, we wish you all the best for the upcoming games. Thanks, Wesley. Good. Magnus, you're playing against Prague today. This has emerged as a big rivalry this season. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the big challenges for sure.
You will win the finals if you win today's match. Is that extra motivation?
Yeah, I really want to wrap it up today.
All right, good luck. Thanks.
It's going to be a huge matchup in San Francisco today between 2 of the big rivals this season, Magnus Carlsen and young Pragnananda. He beat Magnus Carlsen for the very first time in Air Things Masters 9 months ago. And today they play this match against each other. Anish Giri is also in San Francisco. Here comes Prague for the huge matchup today. The other 4 players that are not in San Francisco are sitting in their homes all around the world late at night for most of them. But Prague playing at 12 o'clock in San Francisco. And I wonder if he's going to be tired today, Pragnananda. After the Armageddon yesterday, the players went to a basketball game. They saw New York Knicks against the Warriors. And Ramesh, Prague's coach, tweeted a picture during that basketball game. It's quite funny. Look at that.
Fast asleep, poor Pragnananda. I mean, chess is exhausting. Yeah. And we have to bear in mind, Prague has just come off an Armageddon victory against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Yeah. So it's hardly surprising. But what a moment. You know, he sat there in the VIP seats watching this historical basketball game, and he's missed it.
Packed arena, and there is Prague sleeping on the shoulder of his coach, Ramesh. He needs to be awake and fresh today, Prague. These are the head-to-head scores between Magnus and Prague. 3 wins for Prague, 5 wins for Magnus. And in what style does Prague usually win those 3 games that he has won?
So it's normally when he shows no fear and goes for Magnus's king. Especially Prag's first victory against Magnus Carlsen all those months ago. It was because, as black actually, he managed to launch a counterattack when Magnus wasn't quite organised, and Magnus isn't used to that. He normally has opponents respecting him, playing for the draw. Prag went for the king and was rewarded. And that's how he's got many of his victories since against Magnus. I'm expecting him to continue that strategy. It's very much Prag's style, not to back down, to counter-attack. And maybe the world number one will try to adopt maybe a more pragmatic approach against his youngster, his young opponent. Just in the early stages, at least. If he can survive the opening Magnus, I think he'll still be the big favourite.
A big handshake between two big rivals this season. It's going to be white pieces for Prag in this very first game. The last time they played a match in FTX Crypto Cup in Miami, Prag won it in Blitz tiebreaks. So let's see what happens today. Will Magnus be out for revenge? If Magnus wins in the rapid portion, he will win the tour finals. 4 rapid games to decide the match, 3 points for the winner. If they are tied, then it will be decided in tiebreaks, 2 points for the winner and 1 point for the loser. And here we go.
Here we go, and Jovanka's going to be very happy. Magnus opening with the Caro-Kann defense yet again.
I am extremely happy. My favourite opening on the board. And I'm a little bit worried because Magnus is pausing. There you go. He hasn't shaken my faith in the Caro-Kann. And here comes a light squared bishop. And this is such a trendy move right now. It's so tricky as well. And black normally handles this h4 push by actually copying. And once again, the players are following the fashion. And now the light square bishop comes out and offers a trade. And this is very, very thematic. He pushes the e-pawn forward, 1 square forward. This actually isn't the line that I recommend or play, but it is still very good.
Yeah.
Lots of action are going to be on the board. Pragmatic Prag. Going for the most critical lines.
The one thing I will say about Magnus's opening choice is the Caro-Kann. It's a great opening, but his results there are far inferior to his results in nearly every other opening. Magnus with 1 e5, with the Sicilian, with the French, scores really well. But in the Caro-Kann, he's had many defeats and often does find himself in these really difficult positions. I think that's because Magnus, he wants the space advantage. And here, if anyone, it's white in the centre of the board, having stepped forward quite far. It's white with that extra space. So I'm slightly worried in terms of chess style. This favours Prag. Prag will get very active play, and Magnus already thinking at this early stage, a very well-known position, as Jovanka mentioned, and that's a slightly worrying sign for Magnus's fans.
It is slightly worrying, and I do have to say that Prag has played a slightly unusual second move. I mean, it's only very slightly unusual because usually the dark squared bishop comes out and attacks the queen. But I don't see any reason why Magnus can't go into my favourite variation, which is actually to give a check to the white king. Put the queen on a5.
Yep, and that does preface a even deeper idea. First, it's a check. You hit the white king, and no matter how white blocks, for example, with a knight, with a pawn, black's idea quite often is to slide back and try to trade off these queens. Black, remember, is a bit cramped due to the structure in the middle, white having more space here, these pawns against these slightly inferior black pawns in the middle, so swapping pieces when you are a bit cramped is normally a big benefit. Here I'm expecting Prag, if this does happen, to block. Most likely he would push a pawn forward. He wouldn't want the queens to disappear from the board because then black is doing very well. Actually, long term, if anyone, black is better because black has a very nice bishop coming out to a diagonal. White's bishop tends to be the worst minor piece on the board. So, yeah, it looks very natural. I'm slightly surprised Magnus is hesitating and delaying this queen move. He does go for it, however, after a bit of a think. And we might well see the players race down that variation. Magnus doesn't need to rush by retreating his queen. He could also, for example, bring out his knight to a very nice square on f5. This is quite thematic as well. The dream home for black's knight. You could make an argument for bringing the other knight out. Very flexible, this black, very solid. But, yeah, Jovanka, what do you think? You mentioned that this isn't what you recommend, or this isn't part of your repertoire, this exact position as black?
It is now after this knight move by Prague, and you can see Magnus has gone for the most thematic approach, which is to develop the knight to the f5 square. This is the perfect square for such a knight in the Caro-Kann, and he offers a trade of queens. Again, so far so good. Magnus is doing all the right things, and he's breaking out now. He's challenging White's pawn center, and this as a Caro player gives me great joy, because when you do this, it's either good, as in really good, or it's going to be bad. And here I think it's perfect.
Yeah, it looks like good timing from Magnus just before White started kicking back the black pieces. For example, starting to kick back the black queen. Magnus has broken out, and also this creates a nice square for the black knight, which was previously occupied by a pawn. I think here he's also very happy, if we do see a bunch of exchanges, to even give up his bishop for the white knight. In these types of scenarios, White's bishop still struggles to get to a decent square. Black's knights, once this one develops, they're just perfectly placed. And yeah, if he can avoid any direct consequences right now, Magnus, he's survived the opening. Yeah. He's got a very healthy position as black.
Yeah. That's going to make him happy. We did hear in that video before the game, Magnus summing up the season and talking about Prague, a matchup he's enjoyed a lot this season, and praising Prague, saying he's never fearful when he plays against Magnus. And Magnus has kind of enjoyed it, but also struggled with Prague just going at it in every single game. Is this Prague going at it already?
Yeah, Prague hasn't taken a simple approach against the Caro-Kann. There are many ways to play it safe against this opening, but this isn't necessarily one of them. No,
it's certainly not. And he does capture the pawn. And as David indicated, the bishop captures. And he's Prague is playing in aggressive style, directly attacking the queen, seizing space. So I find that this type of chess for White is quite risky, but also very ambitious at the same time. Why is it risky, people could be asking me? And that's primarily to do with the pawn structure and the control of the half-open lines. If Black were to get safely developed and even into an endgame, then they would have all the trumps in this position, primarily because they have a target to attack the e5 pawn and also a half-open c line for a rook to start exerting pressure.
Yeah, long-term, Black is doing great, but the short-term factors could maybe involve the Black king struggling to find safety. Black's king, if it does castle on the usual side, the king side, you notice the Black h pawn is maybe not ideally placed.
And you might even see Black actually leave the king in the centre. And the king is quite a fickle creature in this particular variation of the Caro-Kann. It goes where it's safest. It doesn't commit itself too early.
Yeah. One of my favourite games that I played in the Caro-Kann as Black was when I castled on move 37 as Black. So I castled queenside. That was against...
Naughty, David.
Yeah. I think my opponent, famous commentator Jan-Krzysztof Hammer, he nearly jumped out of his chair when I castled queenside. He forgot it was still legal. But yeah, so often here, I mean, that just kind of illustrates the fact that Black's king doesn't necessarily need to make a decision as long as the centre is blocked with pawns. Yeah. And I think as soon as Prague starts to hint at an attack, then we'll see Magnus kind of declare his intentions with the Black king.
And
sooner.
Whilst Prague is thinking, it's the perfect time to introduce our puzzle of the day. We have another fantastic puzzle for you guys at home to solve. Now, this one is a real mind-boggling one. I think David described it to me as one of the hardest mate in twos ever. It is White to play, and it was actually composed by Charles Alexander Gilbert, and get this, you're going to be so impressed, in 1877. Wow. So it's a pretty old, pretty historic, but legendary puzzle. And you guys at home, this one's for you. Yeah. Tweet us your answer using the hashtag #ChessChamps, and when you solve it, you will enjoy the feeling of solving one of the most beautiful mate in twos ever.
Yeah, that's what David said. The most beautiful mate in two he's ever seen. He brought it to the studio today. It's super difficult. Take a picture of it and enjoy it today. Work on it with your friends and family. Send us a picture of how you're working on the puzzle and let us know if you can do it or if you're struggling with it.
Yeah. You have to be really creative with this one. I won't give too many hints, but think outside the box. And again, process of elimination. look at all the checks first, look at all the captures first, look at all the direct attempts. But the real answer is very hidden. So good luck to everyone out there trying to solve it. And try not to use a computer.
Yeah.
We will know, because it's a very human kind of way to appreciate the answer to this puzzle.
Definitely.
And meanwhile, Magnus just centralizes the black rook. Also very sensible. We could see a puzzle-like finish to this game, potentially, if Prag can build up some attack.
I kind of envision this now because Christmas break is getting closer. I kind of want to bring this puzzle home for Christmas and just, you know, sit by the fireplace and put it up on an actual chessboard and sit there and work on it for hours and hours.
It will be. You will have to use some brain power on this one.
And it's going to be fine. When you guys tweet the answer today, I will have forgotten when I get home for Christmas, and we'll start on scratch working on it.
Yeah.
No problem.
No, I mean that actually happens to all of us, Kaja. I mean, today I also brought in a puzzle just to show David and also the crew, and it's my favourite puzzle ever. And I still had kind of more or less forgotten the answer, and then I was figuring out. I was like, yes.
Still got it.
Yeah. I mean, try to solve it yourself, I have to say, because there is nothing better than that eureka moment when you've figured out a puzzle. It's like you're a detective solving a crime and you're like, I got it. I know who did it.
And I will say about this puzzle, the second move is memorable. You'll never, ever forget the answer once you spot the second move.
Yeah.
So, try your best to solve it at home.
We do have a couple moves on the board. Is anything changing at all? The bar is very much still.
In the middle, almost.
Yeah.
Essentially, Magnus has committed. He's said, I'm not going to castle queenside. He's moved his rook across, and that black rook was attacked by White's bishop. White's bishop now does look like a pretty decent piece, covering some key squares, but essentially the status quo has been maintained. The centre is still closed, and we'll see the game enter a manoeuvring phase in the next few turns.
Okay, so that means we have time to bring up another chess game. A very special tweet came out earlier today. It's I actually got a message. It's a tweet that has already gotten 14.5 million likes on Cristiano Ronaldo's Twitter page. It's this picture of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo playing a chess game on top of a Louis Vuitton suitcase, a checkered suitcase. How cool of a picture is that? And of course, the moment we saw this, we thought, wait, what kind of a game are they playing? Are they playing an actual chess game? And David, you took a look at this. What do you think?
Yes, it is an actual game. It's taken from a real-life game between the two greatest chess players in the world. These are the two greatest footballers playing right now, for sure. This is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura from Norway Chess 2017. We had to zoom in. We had to work out which pieces were on which squares. It's slightly confusing, the dimensions, but this was from a real game. And it looks like it's black to play in the position. So it's Messi's move. Messi is black. Ronaldo is white in this position. And as we saw in that game between Carlsen and Nakamura, the Messi and Ronaldo of chess, it did end up in a draw. So here White has an extra bishop. White would be winning the game if it's his move. If it's White to play, the queen will step forward, hitting the black king. But the game did end with a draw. The black queen came across, gave a check. The black queen stepped back, and the checks continued. No way to escape a perpetual check. So it's very fitting between Ronaldo and Messi, the two greatest players in the world, greatest footballers. It was a draw.
And how cool that when they did this photo shoot, they found an actual chess game and they decided to make it a chess game between Magnus and Hikaru. Whose idea do you think it was? Ronaldo, maybe, who's met Magnus several times?
Quite possibly. I remember Magnus kicking off at some Real Madrid matches when Ronaldo was there. Maybe that was an inside joke between them. Maybe they just thought, we're the two greatest footballers of our time. Who are the two greatest chess players, most famous chess players of their time? I think that would be Magnus and Hikaru. I'm not sure who's who. Would Magnus be Ronaldo? Would Hikaru be Ronaldo?
Wait, so who was White in that Magnus-Hikaru game?
I think Magnus was
Magnus was White. We'll have to get that confirmed, but...
Magnus was White.
Yeah.
Ronaldo, Magnus, Messi, Nakamura.
I bet Cristiano Ronaldo brought this game and said he wanted to be White and be Magnus Carlsen.
It's quite possible. And maybe in future years they'll reenact a game between Magnus and Prag, two of the greatest players of this generation.
How
never
cool.
know.
Yeah, you never know. No, I have to say that is seriously cool. Yeah. And I love the kind of iconic Louis Vuitton checkerboard style. So it's perfect fusion. Football stars, chess, Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
Golden 3.
Beautiful.
And meanwhile, a long think now from Magnus Carlsen. Prag has played a very mysterious move, the white rook coming across. It's lining up against the black queen, but it's not 100% clear what the plan is for Prag. I think he's just saying to Magnus, you can't improve your position. The black king is a bit stranded, doesn't really want to commit and castle yet. So, yeah, it's definitely the ball in Magnus's court.
It's quite interesting because the players are actually still following 2 games from my database.
Wow.
So this has all been seen before.
I found this on the web.
Whoops, that was my phone. I'm sorry, everyone.
You know, this was has happened to me during commentary as well.
Me too.
My bad.
But you know, in the chess game, that would be a loss.
I'll be defaulted.
And it's also part of the chess nightmare. You know, I always have, like, I'm turning up to a chess tournament, I'm getting ready to play my first game. And in this nightmare, I have, like, an iPad, I have 3 phones, I have my computer with me. Why I have all these devices, I don't know. And I cannot switch them off. And but I was just going to say about this particular position is that White's rook move is actually signifying an intent to expand even further on the left side of the board, to pick up the B pawn, move it 2 squares forward, attack the queen, and just to make Black's life very uncomfortable there on the left and also the right. Because remember, White is just trying to swarm the position, just trying to take as much space as possible and suffocate Black.
Yeah, and Magnus will feel that suffocating effect if he can't find any productive moves right now. I really worry for the Norwegian's position. The evaluation bar says Black is fine. It's not a significant advantage for White, but it's just about plans. And White does have a clear plan, as Jovanka mentioned. White wants to push his B pawn next move. What does Magnus do in the meantime? It's a bit of a mystery to me. And we can just show that, just to illustrate it on the board, to make it clear. White wants to push his pawn forward. That's why he shifted his rook across, just to defend the C pawn. For example, if Black just waits, I'm not sure how, moves his rook, for example, then White's B pawn could step forward, kicking back the black queen. And the black queen doesn't have too many squares, to be honest. She has to be careful where she steps. And White now would have an option to push this pawn forward, kicking the knight away, maybe even push this pawn forward, hitting the queen at some point. And the advance continues. White's pawns are taking so much space. And the reason why Magnus is stuck is because castling here does feel wrong. If Black castles, then at some point, White will move his knight away. I'm not sure whether he does that now or on the next few moves, but this is the big target. Sometimes advancing pawns in front of your king can have long-term consequences, and this is a very severe consequence. You can't really defend it. For example, pushing your pawn forward, because suddenly White's bishop enters in the dark squares and there are too many holes in front of the black king. White will later utilize these with a mating threat, a mating attack.
Yeah, and I don't like castling at all, and primarily also because the black queen is far divorced from her king. You kind of, if your king is under fire, you always want your queen to be close to the king. If she's divorced and moved further away, then this is bad news.
Moved on in life. Yeah. This queen.
Queens are great pieces, but they're also, you know, fantastic attackers. They're also excellent defenders. And when your king is going to withstand some heavy onslaught, you really need your queen there. And wow,
after almost 6 minutes,
this move
Magnus makes this move.
I thought that Magnus would actually slow down the play and go backwards with the queen, just in anticipation of White's pawn move. But instead, he just accelerates everything. Wow.
And this is a pawn sacrifice. If this pawn is captured by Prag, then there's a double attack on the black queen. The black queen has to run now. She's hit by the rook and by the pawn. I guess she'll step back. Magnus is arguing that suddenly the centre's blocked in a different way. Yes, he's a pawn down, but this pawn isn't going to survive long term. The 2 black knights are eyeing it up. The rook is eyeing it up, and he will regain it in favourable circumstances later. The big question for me is whether Prag can continue his attack. This is exactly what you mentioned, Jovanka. This is what he wanted to do anyway. And now the black queen would have to move. I'm not sure where she runs to. I guess she wants to evacuate the c-file. And again, Prag could, for example, step forward. And this one gets really complicated. It feels like Black is living on the edge. Maybe you can take a pawn to counterattack against the white queen. Suddenly the queen is hit, the black knight is hit, and it gets complicated.
Wow.
Calculation is required. That's why Prag suddenly has his head in his hands. He's realizing that Magnus is playing with fire and he will want to find a way to take advantage.
Thinking for 1 minute now. So we're going to head to San Francisco. It's a big day there. Magnus can decide the tour finals in a big match against Prague. And Tanya, what's happening in and around where the players are sitting in the arena?
Kaja, we've got Adisa here with us, who's the man behind running the Hip Hop Chess Federation, as well as 64 blocks that brings together jiu-jitsu and chess. I know, mind-blowing. And he's here to tell us how he does it all. Adisa, it's amazing to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm just happy you're here in the Bay, and you came at a perfect time. The weather's great, champions are great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, and it's amazing to have the event happening in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. What's it like to have all these chess players around here?
I'm only used to seeing this in St. Louis, so I'm super happy because the weather's better, and so is the food. You know what I'm saying? So I'm happy. It's exciting.
Adisa, I was amazed to hear the kind of stuff that you're doing here. And I really want to ask you, tell us, I want to start with the Hip Hop Chess Federation. How did that idea even come into your head?
Well, what happened is I was working with some kids in juvenile hall. I asked them if they played chess, and like 90% of the kids played chess, but they made poor decisions as human beings. I'm like, how can so many kids that play chess end up in juvenile hall? So I started working on a program to use the lyrics from rap music, because rap music actually celebrates chess more than any other form of music, to kind of lure them into playing the game. And it worked really well. I ended up bringing in, you know, Wu-Tang members like RZA and GZA and a bunch of other high-end, high-profile rappers to help. And we did work in St. Louis in 2014, Living Like Kings. I was the guest curator at the World Chess Hall of Fame. And that was the second biggest opening day that they've ever had, except for like Bobby Fischer. You know what I mean? So we beat Bobby Fischer's exhibit, which is unbelievable. But that's only because chess is so, I mean, chess and hip hop are so loved, right, by young people.
That's incredible. And I want to ask you, did you see a big draw that was with the kids when they saw hip hop come along? With chess?
Well, yeah, I did. Because, you know, once you tell them, like, look, you know, RZA and GZA from Wu-Tang play, Will Smith is a player, 50 Cent is a player, right? It doesn't mean that they're high-level players, but that they're thinking about structure, about risk, about, you know what I mean, about coming back from loss. And so these are the things that we say, if you can do that on the board, you can do it in your life.
You mentioned that that's one genre of music that really celebrates chess in a big way. Do you have a favorite bar?
I do. Well, I have the song Weak Spot by Wu-Tang Clan. One of my homies, GZA, he says, I stay on 64 squares while patrolling the center, trading space for material, the time zone I enter. It's a calculated movement from push pieces, advanced development. Once the pawn reaches the 8th rank, now heavily armed with a tank, my opponent's base is threatened, soldiers cut with shanks. This is the kind of stuff that's very much inside the space of hip hop, but you're not always gonna see it in the pop artists. So, you know, you gotta dig for it, but it's absolutely there.
Has it always amazed you, the kind of analogies that come out of the chessboard?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. You know, these analogies are as infinite as the moves in the game itself, and that's why it's always enriching, and that's why you guys are here now, because right, like the game is still super relevant, not just in the hood, but around the world.
Now, you started with the Hip Hop Chess Federation, and then you moved on to combine jiu-jitsu, one of the fastest growing martial art forms, along with chess. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
So I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I teach it. And I started seeing correlations between chess methodologies and Jiu-Jitsu methodologies. And I was like, you know, America needs more, and young people need more physical and mental balance, right? So they work hard on Jiu-Jitsu, they work hard on the chessboard, the meditation centers them to improve both, and the results have been fantastic.
And what have you noticed the similarities between these two? Because the first thought is, wait, how does chess fit in with jiu-jitsu?
Well, chess is very strategic, and jiu-jitsu is very strategic as a martial art. They're like, if two people start fighting, there's a measured way where if one grabs the other, there's a response. If he knows it. If they do that response, there are 3 variant responses. And these things, it's just like chess. So for me, chess is jiu-jitsu for the mind, and jiu-jitsu is chess for the body.
Wow, and I can also imagine there being all these correlations between these tactical themes in chess as well as the tactics and strategy used to, well, in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, zugzwang, like using small movements to prevent advancement. You know, Zwischenzug, like moves to, like, you know what I mean? To just
setting traps.
Yeah, exactly. You can set up traps. You can set up forked attacks, right? So you can go from an arm lock to a triangle choke to another thing called an omoplata. It's a shoulder lock. But these things in a jiu-jitsu player's mind, they fire off instantly. You know?
Wow, I love it. Have you seen an improvement in one of them affect performance in the other?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can see, like, sometimes people can get a chess concept and apply it on the mat like same day. So traditionally, when I was teaching at Zaytuna College over here in Berkeley, when I was teaching in like 2017, we do rounds of chess and rounds of rolling back to back. Also to make you like have to play chess under a high stress situation, because now you're half out of breath. You don't even, you know, you almost got choked, and now you're trying to figure out how to win the game. And then the bell rings and you go back to the mats. So it's intense.
Love it. And Adisa, tell us that the training in jiu-jitsu and chess and this academy that you run, how has that impacted your students' lives outside the academy?
Well, you know, when I was doing Hip Hop Chess Federation, which I shut down in 2019, I had seen a lot of that. 64 blocks is brand new, but we're starting to roll out in Redwood City at a place called the Afro Bushido Academy. You can follow me at Real64Blocks on Instagram, at Real64Blocks, and you can learn more there. In 2023, we're going to roll out the website, and we'll show everything then.
We are so happy to have you here with us. And before we let you go, the final question, who are you rooting for here at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour final?
Man, you got to put me on. I mean, like, I love Carlsen. I love everybody, but like, I like to see his ups and downs, and I like to see his determination. That's impressive, because it's easy when you're killing everybody to just show up and whatever, but when you got to rethink, restructure, and refocus to win again, that's where I see the champion, you know. And so I'm inspired by him in his consistent returns.
Thank you so much. And there we have it, Kaja. Some inspiring stuff going on in the Bay Area here with Adisa. Follow him on Instagram for more information and where you can find this academy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and come back to the Bay as soon as you can. Everybody, come back, come back. I need you to stay. Hang out.
That is so cool. Hip Hop Chess Federation. Is that the next thing you're getting involved in, David?
It's definitely on my list. And next time I'm in the Bay, I know who to contact.
Yeah.
For chess, jiu-jitsu, for everything. Yeah.
How cool. All right, we had quite a few moves on the board. The bar has been quite significantly off for Prague. Now it's more towards the middle. What's happening in the game?
Yeah, and just while Tanya and Adisa were talking, Jovanka and I were discussing the position. It feels like Magnus, he's managed to get over the worst, but he had to walk a bit of a tightrope to get here. And just to refresh, just to show the moves that we missed there a moment ago, White did indeed start pushing pawns forward. We mentioned that b4, b5, throwing the pawns forward, gaining time against the black pieces. That was about to happen. It did indeed happen. And this was a critical moment because maybe the most natural moves here, the knight is kind of attacked. The most natural move here would be to either jump into the center or to jump to the side of the board. But these would have been decisive mistakes. For example, jumping into the center now after a trade of knights, White doesn't necessarily need to get greedy and take this pawn back. Instead, White could step either one square forward or one square to the side. And the whole idea now is that you cut across this diagonal. Black's king cannot castle through check and therefore is stranded for the rest of the game. The king is an easy target now. White will try and regain this pawn and try to break through to the back rank. This would have been just too scary for Black, too dangerous. And therefore, Magnus found a really important retreat. He stepped his knight back, guarding the diagonal. So now the queen stepping forward, for example, wouldn't cut across. Black could still safely castle the king. And as we saw in the game, that meant that Prague had nothing better than rook takes pawn, and Magnus's king finally does find safety. Better late than never. It castled on move 22. That's very late in chess. And now that he has castled, he can look forward to the future with confidence.
Okay.
White stepping back with his queen. I'm expecting Magnus at some point to bring the knight into the game.
Sitting behind Prague there in San Francisco is Wesley So, today fighting a very important match against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. They both know that if Magnus loses today, they have chances to win the tour finals, both Wesley So and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. And here in game one, Duda with the white pieces, the bar has been up for Wesley So almost from the start, actually. Do you think Wesley is winning that game one?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say winning, but he's doing very well. And you can tell on Duda's face, he doesn't look too happy about his position. Normally when Duda's confident, we see the lean back, the smile from the Polish fighter there. But yeah, difficult start, and that continues a run now of kind of maybe substandard, subpar play from Duda. We saw yesterday just the anger, at himself, the frustration, blundering a few times, losing a few games to Prag, letting it slip in the Armageddon when Prag had only 25 seconds left. He could have prolonged that game, maybe won on the clock, but yeah, Duda, it feels like things are going against him, and sometimes that's hard to turn that trend in chess.
Yeah, and there we see the knight spring forward to the centre, attacking the rook, and the rook duly moves to the 4th row. So Prag is potentially getting ready to switch over to the right side if needed and attack the black king. So thinking back to Duda's reaction yesterday, that was so natural. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, how many of us have reacted in exactly the same way, using the exact same swear words? Oh, it was so human, actually. And I'm really glad that Duda revealed that, actually, that side to him, because often, especially when over-the-board chess, everyone is kind of really stoic, and you don't see that reaction unless it's private. And here it was raw, just fury.
Yeah, that's the difference, right, between over-the-board chess and online chess. Often there isn't a camera in your face, but players do get more emotional. They're not afraid to express themselves. But I think you're right, Jovanka. At the board, even if I'm furious, even if I want to throw the pieces, even if I want to punch the wall, you know, you have to suppress it. And that's why this tour's been so refreshing. We see the players showing their passion. All of these guys, they want to win more than anything else in the world. They don't care about anything other than that full point, the victory. And Duda really displaying his emotions yesterday. Meanwhile, Magnus offering to exchange rooks. What do you think, Jovanka? You're the Caro-Kann expert in the house. Yep. If all the major pieces come off the board, if the rooks and queens disappear, who would you prefer then? I would prefer...
It's equal, really.
Roughly equal.
I mean, I want to say in principle I prefer black, but no, I mean, I have to be honest. I think black has a tremendous knight on d5, also a fantastic knight on f5. They're on outposts, they can't really be chased away, but I'm not going to take away the fact that white also has great pieces and control of the open lines. So it's a very, very balanced game at the minute, and I don't see it going too wrong for either side.
Yeah. So you think even though Magnus is down under 3 minutes, it's within controllable margins here? Yeah. For black? Yeah. It's just those two black knights. They're so glorious. They hold everything together. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think black is in any trouble. I mean, the only thing I would say that black should be slightly careful of is the king. You must always watch out for the king, because white's pieces are primed and ready to a right time to switch over and start attacking the one weak spot in the position, which is the h5 pawn. If you attack that pawn and black isn't ready, then you're looking at some trouble.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's this pawn, the only weakness in the game. That's why I love black's last move so much, swinging the rook across just to distract white, to try and trade off pieces. If black had been too slow, for example, maybe pushing this pawn forward, then just as an example, after an exchange of pawns, white could already be tempted to switch attention and even throw a pawn forward. I'm not sure you want to do this immediately. It's very risky, but the white rook would be able to swing across, and there might be some threats against the black king. But this was not allowed by Magnus. He offered this exchange of rooks, tying white down here. And yes, white's retreated. White's knight wants to aim into some juicier squares, potentially. But Magnus has finally activated his last piece. And I think that's a great sign. The evaluation bar agrees. Suddenly the position's turning in black's favour. This black rook maybe shouldn't have been allowed into the game. And after a trade, suddenly black is the one conquering the open file.
I agree with you there. I mean, Prag is being very, like, one-track. He's playing with a one-track mind. He just wants to attack on the right side. But you have to be so careful in these type of positions not to allow black to overrun in the centre. And, you know, look how passive he is. He's attacking on the back row. I mean, black's rook, perfectly placed. The queen is now going to come in. I mean, there's no reason for black to even think about defending that pawn. I mean, you can defend it, of course, but why should you?
Yeah. I think you called it with this queen move that Magnus has just chosen. The black queen suddenly is active, tying white down to some pieces over here, some pawns on the left side. If white now does get greedy and grab this pawn, it feels like there should be consequences. I don't see it immediately, but white's attack still needs time to build up. Black's rook could start coming in, for example. This does look a bit scary for white to deal with, some tension along the second rank. Yes, knight is temporarily defended by white's bishop, but finally black would be able to start trying to capture it. I mean, you also have to worry about this knight coming in at some point. Even black just going greedy and grabbing some pawns. As long as there's no checkmate against the black king, then Magnus should be happy enough. And we're going to see this critical variation. This is the acid test of what Magnus here is doing. And, OK, he does take this pawn, so both queens have got greedy. Black's queen is far divorced, as you coined, from its king. So maybe that's one worrying sign for black. But white is only attacking with a queen right now. The bishop doesn't really do anything. White's bishop is hitting thin air. It has to be joined by the knight. We are going to see Pragg here go all in. It's as if he's thrown all of his chips into the center. He's saying, I'm going for checkmate. I'm going for something against the black king. But the two black knights will act as defenders. And Magnus is calling the bluff. He's saying, no, I don't care. I'm just going to take all the pawns.
Wow.
Jovanka, I mean, the evaluation bar seems to say black is just almost winning now. Does that mean that Pragg has just got nothing? Maybe he's just hoping for tricks?
Well, to a computer who cold-bloodedly works it all out, Pragg has definitely got nothing. But to a human, this does look very scary. So, I mean, first reactions would be like, first going forward, can some piece come to the f6 square and sacrifice itself, you know, to open up lines against the black king? Another option is just to retreat the bishop, just to make way for the knight to jump to g5. Sadly, there's just no way in for the white rook. And finally, my last attempt at attacking would be to push my g-pawn forward and dislodge that knight on f5.
Yeah, and this is a funny trick that Magnus has up his sleeve. I think if the pawn steps forward, he doesn't need to move his knight. He can trap the white queen on the edge of the board. And that would be a sad end to the game for Pragg. But this is the type of thing that can happen if you get overexcited and if you try to attack when you're not fully ready. So Pragg has to be a bit careful here. I agree. He wants to push this pawn, maybe. He wants to get his knight into the game. He can't get his rook in. One move that comes to my mind would be maybe moving the bishop up with gain of tempo to the black rook and then maybe trying to jump in with the white knight. But no, Pragg does indeed just shuffle his rook across. He moves his rook to d1, but what is that doing? Is he getting ready to sacrifice his rook, potentially?
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, otherwise it's just a very mysterious rook move. So rook takes knight, potentially threatened with the idea of them following it through with some more sacrifices.
For example, if white gets given time to take this knight off the board, suddenly white can jump in with a check. And here it's very unclear whether black is able to jump and stop any checkmates in time. Yeah, this is Pragg's idea, to play rook takes knight, removing a defender, taking this piece off the board. But Magnus does have one move here. He needs to potentially defend against that threat or counterattack somehow. And black is winning. Black has 2-point advantage according to the computer, but you need to be careful. The margin for error is tiny.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight one other threat that white has potentially is to actually just come in with the knight to f6 immediately.
Yeah, jump in anyway. For example, if the pawn captures, then, as soon as the black knight moves, for example, if it steps back to capture this bishop, then white does have ideas at some point of bringing the rook in with a devastating back rank checkmate. Okay. So Pragg, he's not out of resources yet. Maybe we can see the top moves, the top suggestions from Stockfish. How narrow is Magnus's path to defend this position? He's a pawn up as black, but how many moves does he have to survive? OK, it says that black has got a decisive advantage if he finds 2 moves and they both attack this white knight in the center of the board. This is a target, it's undefended, so you can attack it with the black rook or you can attack it with the black queen. This is not 100% easy. Neither of those moves are maybe the ones that are first on the radar. They're not clear candidate moves. The third choice for the computer.
I was laughing at that one. I mean, that's so random. That's just to absolutely ignore white's threats. So,
okay. And he doesn't find any of the top 3 moves, Magnus. Does that give Pragg a winning move? No. it's just level again, and it's back in the balance. It's all about whether Prag can break through with a sacrifice. If he can't, then he'll have to look for other avenues. Maybe he'll now sidestep his rook to try and get in on the open c-file. It's still very tense from a human point of view, practical point of view. It's looking scary. I think white is going to be very happy here. Prag with an extra minute on the clock. He's the one attacking. It's always easier to attack with less time. And yeah, let's go back to the players. Is Magnus sweating? Is he showing any signs of nerves? It always seems to be this kind of narrative between the two. It's always Prag attacking, always Magnus reacting. It's very rarely like that in any of Magnus's games against any other opponent. It's incredibly impressive from the young Indian player. We thought just a few moves ago he was running out of steam, he was running out of ideas, but there he goes, he drops back the queen. Stockfish did confirm a few moments ago that this was one of White's best moves, lining up the queen with the black king, some tricks there potentially.
Yeah, and Magnus will now be considering what Prag is threatening, and that's why he runs away with the king, because White was potentially threatening to advance the h-pawn, maybe come in to f6 with a piece sacrifice, and Magnus desperately trying to clarify the situation. He's keeping his king in safety, and at the same time, we see Prag return the queen to where she came from, and so does the king. So will we see a draw by threefold repetition?
It's possible. This is the second time we've seen this position now. If Prag steps back with the white queen, he's asking Magnus that question. Do you want a draw? And they can't offer draws, or they won't offer draws. They'll just, I mean, it's a battle of mind games now. Would you take the draw here if you were Prag? Or would you play on? Would you keep risking to try and break through and checkmate?
No, the problem is that if I were Prag, I'm playing against Magnus Carlsen, so I would take the draw. I can't handle the tension. Well, we're going to see whether Magnus is feeling ambitious and wants to play on, or is he satisfied with a draw?
Magnus down at around 30 seconds, though. It would be so brave to take a risk now and not repeat the position. Black's king does look like it's a target, but Magnus is the one to reject the draw, reject the repetition. He offers a trade of rooks, stepping back Black's knight. Will he live to regret that decision, though?
Well, it's looking like it's going to be a great round for the players with the black pieces, at least in the other three matches. Bar all the way over to Wesley So's side, to Argaisi's side, and to Mamadyarov's side. Question is, can Magnus Carlsen also win with the black pieces? Listening to you guys, I guess anything can happen in this game.
Yeah.
Definitely. As long as the queens stay on the board, Prag has great attacking chances. Black is one pawn up, though, so if the queens disappear, those two black pawns will win the game. And Prag's giving up a piece. He's dropped his bishop in the heart of Black's position. This is a piece sacrifice, because now after a rook trade, there's no more pin. Black can actually... Black can maybe grab this bishop. You have to calculate this very carefully. Can you just call Prag's bluff and take this white bishop off the board? Computer seems to think Black is winning.
Is Magnus reacting to this? Let's see Magnus as well.
Yeah, we need to watch both players here, because the nerves will be jangling for both of them. He doesn't bite the bullet. He doesn't take White's bishop, and I think that was a good decision. If you had taken White's bishop, the white queen would have come to the top of the board, delivered a nasty check. But look at this Black retreat, blocking the white queen's entry points. And suddenly Prag, he's really gone all in again.
10 seconds. And I think the thing is, he's burnt his bridges.
Yeah.
That knight retreat is such a good defensive move. And if that bishop moves, well, suddenly the e5 pawn falls and Magnus is completely winning. And the queen slides over one square. But Magnus, he's just forcing an endgame.
Yeah, he's closing the door. Every time White's queen tries to get in behind the black pieces, Magnus shuts down, either with his queen or with his knights. Black only has good defensive pieces left, and finally he does get greedy. He does seize the moment to take White's bishop. So right now, Black is a whole knight ahead. But will the Black king survive? It feels like Black's king should have enough defenders around it. Those two black knights are just great pieces, but some dangerous checks. You can't take your eye off the ball. 15 seconds for Magnus now. White's queen is threatening to check from the front, maybe. Occasionally she can try and jump in along the diagonal and check from behind, but Magnus, he needs to move. How does he keep his king safe? He tries to run forward out into the open. He's going to keep advancing down the board. That is counterintuitive, but it looks safe enough for now. There's no checks with the white queen. White's knight can give a check, however. Maybe that's what we'll see Prag do.
Yeah. And I'm actually predicting that that knight will retreat at the right time to h6. And this is why Pragg just moved his queen 1 square to the side. You know, she's threatening to give a check on h5, or a knight is going to jump in. And Magnus using the whole board just to defend his king. Look how the queen gave a check and then she returned all the way back. Such classy move.
Yeah, really, really nice use of geometry there, using all the angles. Suddenly the queen and king, they're back together, they've reunited, and that does spell maybe the end for Praggnanandhaa. He gives a check with his knight. Now Black's king has to march into the eye line of the white queen. This is with this, this was the only safe square, sorry, it's so exciting right now. But Pragg, the problem is you can give a discover check, but Black's queen will block, and you're just a knight down. No more compensation. You have to trade the queens, and that will spell the end.
Yeah.
I love this beautiful romantic story. Jovanka saying early in the game that the queen and king had divorced, and now David saying they're reunited.
Yeah, back together again.
And that's going to win the game for Magnus.
It is going to win the game for Magnus. And still there's a margin to go wrong, especially with the Black King so open. But OK, he has some great pieces surrounding his king. Those knights, they're fantastic defenders. I'm fully expecting Magnus to actually capture the knight, queen takes, and step back with the queen. And there we go. It is going to be game over. There's just really no way that the white queen can fight all alone against Black's army. I mean, just take a look at those 2 pawns there, the A and the B pawns. They're just going to promote.
Yep, those 2 black pawns are going to start running sooner rather than later. And white pawns, they look pretty good, but the problem is, as soon as you start advancing them, you weaken the white king. The white king is on the wrong side of the board. You have to try this. There's simply nothing else for Pragg, but the queen and knight together for Black. They're just going to defend everything. They're going to hold everything. If Black can force a queen trade, that's game over. Those 2 black pawns will decide. That's what Magnus is trying to do. Planting his knight in the centre. Unless there's some miraculous perpetual check now from Praggnanandhaa, then he can essentially resign. But look at this. Black's king yet again hides on the side of the board, and no more checks. Any queen check will just result in a queen trade. And yeah, you're running out of any positive ideas here now for white.
7 seconds, 5 seconds. The clock is ticking for Pragg, and he retreats the king. I mean, there's really nothing for it. He just has to push his pawns forward and hope for the best. And here comes Alice. She's wandering down the board.
Yeah, we saw Pragg shake his head. He knows that he's relying on a huge blunder now. Also, the clock times are against him. Magnus was down at a few seconds when he was defending for his life, but he's built up a huge time advantage almost at the 1-minute mark now. And again, just centralising his queen. He's trying to say, yes, the white queen can go and capture Black's pawns, but then the white pawns would fall. And yeah, any defensive idea here would involve weakening the white king even further. Pragg now under 5 seconds. He does try and grab a pawn, but it's not going to be enough. Black's queen and knight are going to team up now, maybe even deliver some checkmating threats.
Yeah. I mean, the first move to calculate is actually the knight coming forward to the f4 square, and some deadly checkmating ideas on the board. And take a look at the Black King. It can do some running of its own as well. So everything is working in Magnus's favour. He's got a safe place to hide the king, queen and knight. Perfect attacking duo, and well, he's following the principles, putting the queen in the center. She's controlling as many squares as possible. This is such a good technique. And Pragg, just 10 seconds left on the clock, and his position is dire.
And in the background, we see Wesley So. He has just won the first game today against Jan-Krzysztof. That means hopes for Wesley So of winning the tour finals. If Magnus loses the match today, right now, that's not looking good for Wesley. Magnus about to win.
Yeah, and this is the danger when you don't attack correctly, and when the attack fizzles out, you might just be material down. And here we do see, as Jovanka advocated, Black's king is going to start marching forward. Why not? White is attacking with only a queen. The safest way to avoid the checks is to hide behind the white pawns, to hide behind your own pieces, potentially. And here Black can just munch on that white h-pawn very safely, and the checks will start to dry up.
Only one move that Magnus must not play. He must not step forward with his king to the g4 square. If he does that, he's going to lose. He's going to get checkmated. But Magnus, he's too clever. He just centralises the queen. And, yep, that's it. we have a result. Magnus has won the first game.
With the black pieces taking the lead here, Magnus Carlsen. Impressive stuff. He will have the white pieces in 11 minutes in game 2. And if he wins in the rapid portion, he will win the tour finals.
Magnus, it was a dangerous position, down on seconds. What made you decline the repetition at that point?
I thought it was better.
Just thought that you had chances there?
Yeah, I mean, I felt also like it's always a bit of a, like I'd offered a repetition on like a couple of moves before because I wasn't sure at all what to do, and then yeah, when I declined, I thought like it would be psychologically difficult for him as well, but you know, I think it was a good practical decision.
Yeah, it worked out to perfection. He immediately collapsed. When he went bishop f6, this sacrifice, did you think that this cannot work, or did you feel this is dangerous?
Yeah, I thought it was desperation, but you know, there are plenty of opportunities to blunder still.
All right, good luck for the next one. Thanks.
And today's learning point is about what not to do when attacking. Prag did have a very promising attack there against Magnus Carlsen, and Prag here as white had a few promising moves. He could have, for example, kept pieces on the board. That's number one. When you're attacking, don't make exchanges. Don't allow your opponent to swap off your active pieces. He could have put his rook on an open file. Later on, he might be able to enter, and black here would be on the defensive for a few more moves. He could also, for example, have even thrown in the white knight with a check. Some calculation would back up a forced draw if Prag had seen this. Here he could retreat his bishop with a discover check. For example, the black king cannot actually run away because suddenly it would get hit from a different angle. Prag had all of these promising opportunities, but what he did do was unfortunately a mistake. He moved his bishop into f6, but this allowed a trade of rooks, and suddenly white is retreating. White had to recapture with his queen. He's not in the ideal attacking formation anymore, and Magnus was simply able to regroup. He brought the knight into the defense, the white queen shuffled across, he brought the black queen into the defense as well, and black's 3 pieces were perfectly placed to rebuff this attack. So when you're attacking, don't swap off pieces and never ever retreat.
Magnus Carlsen takes the lead and will have the white pieces in game 2 coming up in 9 minutes. Prag, he needs to make a comeback, and we know he is definitely capable of beating Magnus Carlsen. The first time he did it was in Air Things Masters 9 months ago, when he became the youngest player ever to beat Magnus Carlsen after he became world champion at the time.
Whoa, look at the bar.
Yeah, is this clever or is this madness? Okay, actually, Prag finds the best move. I was about to say, Stockfish, the computer, had 3 suggestions there. The move I mentioned, taking that white pawn, would have been fine for black, but this is even better. Okay, Magnus does try and create that heir for his king, but as you guys mentioned, the only escape square for that white king is up the board on a light square.
8.5 on the bar.
Checkmate is just coming, cliff edge.
Yeah.
But, oh wow, what a move. Black cuts the coordination between white's queen and the second rank, and is Magnus about to resign?
Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, loses to 16-year-old Pragnananda. Look at Prag. He can almost not believe it. Tell us what this means to you when you beat the world champion in a big game.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy. Probably I was slightly worse in the middle game, but then I got this counterplay with knight f4, knight d3. Then I should be fine.
Hardly anyone knew the name, the difficult name, Pragnananda, before the Air Things Masters in February this year. But after he beat Magnus Carlsen, Prag created headlines all over the world and became a superstar in India and now in the whole chess world. The 2022 season of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour has been a life-changing event for young Prag.
This season was definitely good for me, and I'm very happy that I got this opportunity. And I think overall it's a great experience for me to play all of these guys every month. It has definitely brought my game up. It's one of the best games I had.
It's unbelievable how he finds that move.
We've got to call that Prague style.
In India, there are many people following it. I think this tour is one of the main reasons for it. And it has got just to a new different level.
The world champion loses to 16-year-old Pragnananda.
To see the recognition coming, it's good. It not only motivates me, but also I think other players, other upcoming, but they're just starting, it also inspires them.
He's calculated everything out so cleanly.
Somehow things have changed a lot, like many people kind of recognize me now, and also it gives me a lot of invitations and things like that, opportunities.
There we go. Prague finds a really nice pattern. Checkmate next move.
You know, I was playing till 2 a.m. Then I had to go in the morning and write. I think it did help me, like when I was giving my exams and playing the tour, because you're kind of relaxed more. I mean, it's of course pressure is the situation, but you don't care so much about things. You just want to enjoy and play, and that's what I did.
This is just one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, let alone on the tour. It's just a masterpiece.
What are your goals for 23?
Yeah, hopefully to be part of the tour if I get a chance, and also to get my classical rating up, which is very important for invitations.
What a season for young Prague. He's played so many great games. We heard the comment from Grandmaster David Howell in there. This is one of the most beautiful games I have ever seen. And that game is one of 9 games that you can vote for in the best game of the season. If you head to chess24.com/tour, there is a vote for best game of the season. I think Prague actually has a few games in there that you can vote for. And he started out at 16 back in February, David. Is it one of the most impressive breakthroughs you've seen from a youngster?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he was already a very strong player, of course. He was a Grandmaster since 12. But this year, he's just shot to stardom. He's beaten Magnus Carlsen. He's got to the latter stages of many tour events. In the Olympiad, he was one of the starring players as India 2 nearly won the gold medals. And yeah, he's just had a phenomenal year. Next, he's going to break the 2,700 mark, and he's going to go from there. But this has been a great stepping stone on that rise to greatness.
Yeah. And we heard a big ambition for him now is to keep playing on the tour and to get his rating in over-the-board chess a little bit up. It must be an important time coming for Prague now, because we often see these youngsters, super talented, we talk about them, the next world champion, and then many of them disappear. So what is it about for Prague now?
Yeah, it's just about hard work and being able to perform over the board. And we have seen that from Prague. This is the great thing about him. He's managed to hold his nerve. And he's also coping with being a superstar, because in his native India, he really is just a complete celebrity. You know, he told me that when he beat Magnus Carlsen, you know, the phone just did not stop ringing. You know, everyone wanted an interview with him. And so he's grown up with this attention. And I think that's going to fare him well. That's going to do well for him, because he's just used to this pressure. And we just keep seeing Prague just get better and better. And I love the way he shows no fear when he faces the world champion.
Yeah. And it becomes even more impressive when you know that Prague has been going to school at the same time as competing with the best chess players in the world. He made it all the way to the final in Chessable Masters, and just hours before playing in that final, he had to do exams.
It's a very good pawn as well.
Look at this white A pawn. This white A pawn is running up the board, and he's given up. Prague takes it.
Wow! 16-year-old Pragnananda is ready for the final in Chessable Masters. You have to do exams before the final starts?
Yeah, actually, I have to be at school around 8:45, and now it's 2 a.m. So I have to go and sleep, and yeah, try not to sleep in the exam.
Where do you want the best result? If you could only choose one, would you prefer winning the match against Ding or passing your exam?
Winning the match is much more nicer than passing the exam.
He's got his priorities right there. Prague, the most important was to win the final against world number 2, Ding Liren. He didn't do that, but he did become second, and he has been fighting in the top of the tour the whole season. And now he needs to fight to make a comeback against Magnus Carlsen in their match. This is day 6 in the tour finals, and Magnus won the first game with the black pieces. It was actually a win for the all the players with the black pieces. That's not often we see, David.
I think that might be the first time we've ever seen that on the tour.
Wow.
Usually starting with white is an advantage, quite a significant advantage, and well, yeah, the players putting paid to that myth.
Definitely. Wesley So winning with black pieces in a super important match against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Eric Gaisi winning against Liam Le, and Mamedyarov winning game 1 against Anish Giri. We are going to follow game 2. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces against Prague inside Shack 15 in San Francisco. There's only 2 more days to be played in the Tour Finals and in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. The match today and then a match tomorrow for all the players. Magnus Carlsen, if he wins in the rapid portion today, he will win the Tour Finals. And what do you expect from him now, Jovanka? With the white pieces coming from a win.
Yeah, I mean, I expect Magnus just to do what Magnus does best. He doesn't really change his strategy. He just goes about, he's ambitious, he's going to put Prague under pressure, and Prague has to be ready for him. He has to be on top form.
They did play the Carlsen in the previous game, and I have some nice information for you, Tanya, from Ty, who does all the stats in the tour. Black is scoring 60% in the Carlsen on the tour this season. 14 black wins, maybe now 15 with Magnus's win, and 7 white wins, 13 draws.
I tell you, it's a fantastic opening, you know. It's solid, but you're resourceful, you can counter-attack, and it's just, what can I say? Everyone should go out and play the Carlsen.
Yeah.
Everyone should go out and buy Jovanka's book on the Carlsen.
It's a little bit old, but yeah, go ahead and
definitely
buy my book.
Any chance Prague with the black pieces now will play the Carlsen?
I don't think I've ever seen Prague play the Carlsen.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The one time I played the Carlsen against Prague.
The one time? Oh, against Prague.
Yeah, against Prague. He was 12 years old and he beat me. So I will never play the Carlsen against Prague again. But Magnus there showing it is a very strong opening, a viable opening. And the good thing about the Carlsen, there's no way to force a draw. Unlike others, maybe like the Berlin and the Petrov, for example.
Here comes Magnus. He's going to have the white pieces in this game 2, coming from a win. And he was a little upset yesterday because the perfect run ended. He had won 8 games in a row before he lost the game to Liam Le. And he also had to decide the match in tie breaks, where he eventually won. On 14 points now. Here we go.
And wow, it's 1b3 from Magnus Carlsen. This brings back shades of Adiban last season when this was really trendy. They started calling them the 1b3 Cowboys. And yeah, this is a very kind of sensible opening. It's got a reputation for being wild and reckless, but it's got positional ideas behind it. Magnus is going to put his bishop on b2 on a very nice diagonal.
Yep. So it's a strange kind of opening, but is it a move, this 1b3, that is considered a bad move, like some of the other openings we've seen Magnus
do? You can't say that, Kaja. Is it bad? No. It's a good opening.
Okay.
I mean, it has such a big fan club amongst the B3 Cowboys that we cannot say that. I mean, it is a reasonable opening. The big problem with it is that it doesn't actually challenge for the center. So it does allow black a free game, but in return, you know, white gets good development with the pieces and has a straightforward plan. So yeah, definitely not bad.
And the one thing I will say as well, 90% of the time, like 80-90% of the time, it does transpose into the Reti opening or the English opening, into much more kind of sensible positional kind of variations. And I might get in trouble for saying that, but,
I was gonna say.
I'm not afraid. B3, there's a reason we don't see it at the top level every time. Black has dozens of ways to get very nice position.
But it must be nice to have this fianchettoed bishop.
Yeah.
Just eyeing up the whole board.
Exactly. And there's various ways black can deal with this. Black can copy, for example. I think this is something Prague might do. Black might push the g-pawn forward and then plant his dark square bishop also on the same diagonal, just to neutralize the pressure of white's piece there. Magnus now thinking for a long time. Very surprising. I'm expecting him either to push white's e-pawn forward or bring white's knight out. But yeah, Prague doesn't look concerned at all. Remember as well, this was popularized by Adiban last year, an Indian player. Adiban played on the same Olympiad team as Pragnananda. For sure, they've discussed this before. This will not cause any surprises. Often B3 is only played at the top level nowadays for psychological value, for kind of surprise shock value there, and he's not going to surprise Prag.
And, well, Magnus has played this a handful of times. I remember him doing something, I think he played it against Anish Giri, and I'm pretty sure he played it against Wesley So. And I also remember a long, long time ago that Wesley also did DVD on 1B3. I mean, I heard the story. Now, this is just rumours that he didn't want to reveal any of his preparations. So he goes, no, I'm not going to do a mainstream opening on my DVD. I'm just going to cover this move, 1B3.
That was quite a few years ago. So Wesley released some videos on 1B3, but he'd never, ever played B3 in his life up to that point. So it's interesting, trying to show expertise in an opening you've never played before.
And it was on DVD as well.
It was, it was so long ago that DVDs were still in fashion.
Do you guys have a big library of chess DVDs or chess VHS videos?
I got rid of them. I did actually have VHS videos, and I did actually have DVDs as well. And I grew up watching the VHS. Gosh, I'm so old.
VHS videos as well.
Yeah. But, you know, they
How
used
can
to
you
be...
bin them, Jovanka? They're such classics. I still have those videos of the 1993 World Championship, the 1994 Intel Championships. I still get out that VHS player once a year just to...
I don't have a VHS player anymore, you know, that's the thing, because it's like old technology. I don't even have a DVD player. Yeah, long time ago. I can still remember.
Yeah, unfortunately, Prag wasn't alive in those days. I'm not sure he even knows what VHS is. But
Probably not, actually.
He probably doesn't know. But he does know what this opening is, and he's played instantly up to this point, Prag. And just very sensible, just pushing a pawn. And you see Magnus thinking, I think maybe the most principled move here for Magnus would be to push White's c-pawn forward 2 squares. At some point, you have to chip away at Black's centre. Black's pawn centre is too strong. You can't let that kind of continue much longer. Otherwise, you're just going to be worse with White. You're going to be a bit cramped. So I think you need to start fighting for space. But the problem is that would transpose into the Reti opening, and Magnus maybe wants to play a more flexible approach. So he's spending a lot of time at this early stage. Spent 3 minutes on the clock. It's only move 5. He hasn't even played his 5th move yet. But what is he thinking about? Maybe he'll bring White's light squared bishop out. He can give a check with that piece. He can just move the bishop 1 square, getting ready to castle. I must admit, I'm flabbergasted. I'm almost speechless by his opening choice. You're ahead in the match. Why would you play 1b3? 1b3 is a must-win type of opening.
Yeah. Well, anyway, his pause does allow me to remind everyone that we do have a puzzle of the day competition, and this one is a good one. And we're asking you to solve the most beautiful mate in 2. We'll bring up, there it is, there's the puzzle. So if you're watching, do a screen grab, save it, and get your friends round, take pictures of yourself, tweet us the solution using the hashtag #ChessChamps, and it's White to play. And it was created by, I have to remind you, the Charles Alexander Gilberg. We were like laughing about how old we were, but this one is very old puzzle, 1877.
Even before VHS.
Yeah, even before the Royal Mail. Probably by horse post, but maybe not actually. So there becomes Magnus does challenge in the centre. And tweet us a solution using hashtag #ChessChamps. And I can let everyone know that those people who have tweeted in their answers, no one's got it right yet.
Really?
No one, yeah.
Probably going to take hours, right?
It will take hours. And the great thing about this puzzle is that often you see people struggling, and then as time draws on, towards the end of the show, they've got it. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen many answers where players they found a mate in 2, but they're forgetting that White is actually in check in some of those variations as well, so there's no time to deliver checkmate. So you don't just focus on the opponent's king, or you also have to be careful of your own king. And meanwhile, a couple of moves in this game, Black moved his bishop once, and after an exchange of pawns, had to move his bishop again. So Prag has actually lost a small bit of time there. He's lost a tempo. I'm slightly surprised. I do like White's position now. White's dark squared bishop on that diagonal. Watch out for that being the most valuable piece later, the best piece on the board. First, however, both sides do need to rush to castle. I think Magnus will move his light squared bishop, and That will signal the end of the opening, but it has cost Magnus a lot of time on the clock. We saw the clock play a big factor in that last game between the two when they were both down around 30 seconds. Magnus prevailed there. I do feel that he needs to keep some time because when Prag has beaten Magnus, it's often with Magnus making a slip under time pressure.
Yeah, I agree with you, David. Strange choice of opening. I mean, looking at this position, it almost feels like Magnus is trying to play an opening that you'd see on the black side, but just with that extra move.
Yeah, and he does need to just move Magnus. He's spending a minute and a half when he's got 3 or 4 very sensible moves, but they're not going to change the outcome of this game. They're not going to be decisive. This is the type of thing, when I play chess as well, I note down my time after every move. Sometimes I look at my score sheet, I'm like, wait, I spent 6 minutes on this move, but it's so obvious. Why did I waste that time? And I think Magnus will look back, if this game goes wrong, he'll look back at these moments, he'll be thinking, why have I spent 6 minutes almost, and it's only move 7? OK, he does challenge Black's centre, also very, very sensible. If we do see a trade of pawns in the next couple of moves, then we'll either see a symmetrical pawn structure and equality, or we might see Black, if Praggnanandhaa is feeling ambitious, take on what we call an isolated queen's pawn. Instead, he castles. And now Magnus, I don't think he can afford another long think. I think he just needs to bring his knight out, bring his bishop out, develop, go back to basics, just keep following those rules. And there we go. He's upping the pace now, developing the white knight. Very sensible.
Yeah. And I'm fully expecting Praggnanandhaa to also react quite quickly and develop his knight. And just checking the database, it has been played quite a few times, around about the 30-game mark. And the top player playing this system with the white pieces is Hikaru Nakamura, who is fast becoming one of Magnus's big rivals.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been one of his big rivals for years, Jovanka.
Yeah, but the results never kind of...
Not in classical chess, but in Rapid and Blitz, they've always been very balanced.
Yeah, I do remember that Hikaru built up this big rivalry he called Magnus many, many moons ago. Yeah. Sauron. And
I remember that. I'm playing with sunglasses.
Yeah, I mean, they were also... But then the classical results, as David said, didn't really match up. You know, the score was really one-sided. Yeah. But now it seems like Hikaru's got this new lease of life. You know, he's now the Fischer Random World Champion.
He is.
And really snapping at Magnus's heels, played in the candidates. And all the while being a full-time streamer as well is very impressive.
Yeah. Hikaru Nakamura is an impressive player. He is also living in California, in the US, where these players are now sitting, fighting it out on day 6 in the tour finals. Tanya is also in San Francisco. So we met already someone from the Chess Hip-Hop Federations. That's fantastic, Tanya. Who else is there with you in San Francisco?
Kaja, joining us today here at Shack 15 is Elliot, also from the Mechanics Institute, but he's a big chess enthusiast, has been around in the scene for such a long time. Elliot, it was amazing to see you enjoy chess. How are you liking the vibe here with the tour?
It's, well, for me, it's pretty novel. I mean, this is up there. I mean, you rarely, I mean, I grew up with, like, high school gymnasiums and not so high rent hotels, and of course I've been a lot of other places now, but this is very nice. I mean, I'm looking across at Buena Vista Island. Is that Buena Vista? Yeah, Buena Vista Island, and just an incredible building. Just what a great view.
It's a great place to have an event in, and especially a final of the tour. You've got such a big matchup with Prag and Magnus, and this is quite a generational clash. Are you enjoying that one?
From what I've seen, I didn't see the very end, but I saw Bishop F6. I'm thinking, it's not any good. And eventually he took it. Magnus did. I was expecting Carlsen to win, but I guess he kind of slipped away. I saw the face he made when he was talking to you. It was pretty funny. But yeah, we'll see what happens in these next games. I noticed that Magnus just played 1b3. I almost played that last night myself, but I managed to forget to. But definitely a typical Magnus. Did you expect that, sir? So no, it'll be interesting. I mean, I have barely seen the other games. I saw Duda versus Wesley So, which So won. That was nice.
1b3 definitely is. Somebody back in India, Adiban, must be happy with that. I want to ask you, Elliot, that there are so many youngsters here in the Bay Area as well. You have been part of the chess scene for a long time. What's your experience been like?
With the kids, it's incredible. I mean, as I grew up, it was all mostly locals, and then of course there was the Soviet wave, or ex-commie, as Christensen liked to call them. All these players showed up that were incredibly strong, and it kind of changed the scene a bit. And of course everybody adjusted, and it became, now they're Americans. But now we've got so many hordes of, if I might say, of Indian and Chinese and others, and some Vietnamese in the Bay Area. Of course, since we're so close to the Pacific, you go to tournaments and there's so many kids. Sooner or later, one of them is going to, or more, is going to become, some super GM. Of course, I could mention someone who's recently become a GM. Since you said I could talk about, I've played Hans, the elephant in the room, as they've been calling him, 5 times. We have an even score, but that was back in 2014. Things are a little different now. If we played, I'd have to, having properly check the room, wonder if I have a chance. But I would. I always have a chance.
All right, well, it's nice to hear your thoughts, Elliot, on all the action that's going on in the tour final. But as you can see, Kaja, it's all eyes on the Magnus Prague, the big matchup. Will Magnus win and wrap up his championship just today, or will it be Prague?
Oh, it's so exciting, Tanya, to follow this. And very cool to hear from local player Elliot as well. We have moves on the board. Magnus starting with this strange 1v3 opening and what's happening in the game.
Yeah, so the center has completely clarified itself. We've seen a bunch of pawn exchanges in that middle of the board, and now Magnus finally has castled. Prague may be so impressed by 1b3, he's just pushed his pawn to b6, and he's going to do the same with his bishop now. That black light square bishop is often the problem piece in these types of situations, so he can improve that. And then we'll see both sides with good pieces, lots of central control. It's just going to be about who can outmaneuver the other. It looks completely balanced to me. How about you, Jovanka?
It looks completely balanced as well. I mean, take a look at Black's pieces, every single one of them. Good squares, no problem with development. Rooks are soon going to have connection. And yeah, before I get too excited about Black's position, I can also see the same for White. White also has fantastic pieces. Just take a look at those bishops. They are on adjacent diagonals, primed for attack. So both sides have got lots of things to be happy about. I like White's position. I like Black's position. Anything can happen. I think it's balanced.
Yep. For example, White's queen will most likely step forward at some point. Black's bishop will mobilize. And yes, we were loving White's bishops, but Black's bishops are pretty good too, along these two diagonals. And it's all about the central squares. At some point, I do it. I think predicts exactly what you were saying there, Jovanka. White's rook's coming to the center, Black's rook's coming to the center, and we'll just see a standoff. I just don't see how either side can really improve their position without allowing exchanges. For example, if White ever wants to improve his knight, he might have to step it forward, and then we'll see knights disappear from the board, and the position might fizzle out. It might be a waiting game. If we do see a situation like this with every piece perfectly placed, it's not clear how either side will improve. It's just waiting, maybe pushing some pawns, giving your king some space, retreating, just waiting, biding your time, and who will crack? Magnus has a lot less time on the clock, but Prague is in the must-win situation, so it's unclear who's going to be taking the risks to try and imbalance this one.
We're only in move 13, and before this analysis, we did hear from Tanya and Elliot in San Francisco. Elliot being a part of the Mechanics Institute Chess Club, which is the oldest chess club in the US, a fantastic chess club. And before the tour final started, there was a meetup event at the Mechanics Institute, and we really want to show you some images from this fantastic chess club. Take a look at this.
I'm at the Mechanics Institute, the oldest chess club in the United States. It started in 1854. A special day for the Mechanics Institute today, as the players from the Champions Chess Tour are here for a meet and greet to come and have some fun with their fans.
our special guests sign our historic chess registry.
Kevin, how was the experience?
It was definitely very fun, and yeah, I hope to be back next time.
And Sebastian, did you enjoy meeting Anish and Wesley and Prag?
Yeah, it's a great experience meeting them and getting to know them and just talking with them.
What about you? Who's your favorite player?
Magnus.
This is such an historical chess club. Actually, in the 1900s, all the world champions in chess, except for two, visited the Mechanics Institute Chess Club. And here, before the tour finals, 3 of the players in San Francisco joined in to visit this fantastic chess club. That looked like a very cool event. And right now, one of them, Prag, is playing here against Magnus. Another one, Anish Giri, struggling over the last few days. And now a draw in game 2 against Mamedyarov. He lost the first one. Anish, if he loses the next game, he's going to lose that match as well. What's happening with Anish?
Yeah, he doesn't look his usual energetic self. He's still, you know, in interviews as well, he's appearing too pensive. He's questioning everything about his game. And sometimes you need to leave the reflection for after a tournament. You can't get too down about things during an event. It feels like a bit of tilt as well. It's been a tough year for him on the tour, not quite achieving his usual high levels. So, yeah, he'll be back. He'll be stronger. Anish Giri, he mentioned as well, he's learnt a lot from his experiences this year. But, yeah, this event has been a bit of a write-off for him the last few days.
Yeah. It's drama in the other matches as well. Arjun Erigaisi could be about to go up 2 points to Liam Le. He also won the first one, Arjun Erigaisi. Looking good for the young Indian playing at night at home in India. He struggled the first few days, but now on fire, Arjun Erigaisi. And Wesley So and Jan-Krzysztof Duda also playing game 2. First one was a win for Wesley So in San Francisco. He could be about to go 2 points up. The bar now going a little bit more towards center. We will follow the drama in that one as well. In this one, Prag needs to make a comeback. The bar is very much in the middle. Can anything still happen in this game?
Yeah, anything can still happen. We've only seen an exchange of 2 sets of pawns. Every other piece is on the board still. And look at the knights in the middle, Jovanka. There's so much tension with those knights. You very rarely see a formation of 3 knights in a row. And I'm not sure who that favours. I think we will see the rooks start to gravitate towards the D and C files. From there, what next? That's the big question.
Yeah, exactly. What next? And both players will be considering, you know, what to do. I personally am stuck. After the rook's move, I'm like, OK, probably I would be just moving pawns. Yeah. And just say, hey, Black, how about we pass the move to you? And, I mean, it's such a tense position. Neither side really wants to give a little bit because you don't want to be retreating your pieces because they're so well placed. And I just think this position is just very balanced. What I'm predicting is that there will be so much tension in the centre that the pieces will get traded off and we will see a draw.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to crack and trade off the first set of pieces first?
Magnus.
You think Magnus?
Yeah.
You think he'll be happier with the draw. So, OK, Prag starts. He's the first one to put a rook on an open file. The white queen is a bit of a target, so Magnus might feel a bit uncomfortable there. There's no direct threat, however. Or is there?
There is, isn't there? Bishop takes knight.
Yeah, if the white rook moves across, maybe Black can consider taking and pushing a pawn forward. This looks very nasty with a pin. OK, maybe there is a threat, so maybe Magnus has to deal with this. The white knight would be lost in this type of situation. So, OK, going back. So already, white can't take a timeout. White has to potentially push this pawn forward. Just, there we go, Magnus has played it, just to block any advances by Black. This pawn move does give away the square next to it, the b4 square. This is an outpost for Black's bishop now, but the white knight is at least solidified on its outpost. And yeah, I think we'll see that dance go on. The other black rook will centralize, white's rooks will start to move into the center. And I'm expecting to see something like this, Jovanka, where it's just symmetry, total symmetry, rooks staring down at each other, these knights against the bishops in the middle of the board. And there we go, the bishop does plant itself in the middle. Just a little pretty pattern here, but who's going to break that tension? Neither side really wants to capture a knight for their bishops. Bishops are maybe stronger than knights in these positions. So, yeah, this tension is just going to go on and on and on.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think maybe it's Prag who will crack. Maybe Prag will actually have enough, and like after he's lined up the queen and light square bishop together, put the queen on b7. I'm expecting the knight to get out of the way and retreat to g5, and something could happen.
Yeah, for example, trying to force white to trade off because there's too much tension now along this diagonal. So this could be a plan long term. Meanwhile, look at the tension. Look at these 4 pieces especially. It's all about these 4 squares. And yeah, who is this going to favour? Magnus down at 5 minutes, Prag at 8 minutes. He's very calm, but he's not shaking as much as we're used to. A few days ago when he was winning matches, we saw him shaking, getting the energy going. He looks very calm now, but is that a sign maybe as well that he doesn't really believe in the energy of his position? It's very hard to create winning chances as black.
But it could also be the type of position, because we have seen, well, he's still kind of shaking with his leg. But, I mean, when you have super complicated positions where there's calculation galore, all sorts of checks, captures, attacks, then you do tend to kind of like also mirror the energy there by shaking quite a bit. Whereas here it's a calmer position, so therefore you don't have to be on high alert. You can just kind of take it easy. I certainly would be taking it easier. I would be just like making sure that my king is safe on every move. There's no big blunder happening, and then just improve the position. And as you can see, it's just like a move by move position. Every single move that you consider, it just has to be an improving move. You have to give a purpose to the bishops or the knights.
Yeah, so you want to find that purpose, and that's why Prag is spending so much time now. I think we might see a scramble, just tension building and building and building, and then only when they get down to 2 minutes each, then one side will release that tension and start taking risks, start asking questions to the opponent. But yeah, I mean, do you feel Prag, he's had a bit of an up and down tournament, right? But a lot to learn from, you feel, this tournament?
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely been a different story to the other 2 majors, and those majors, he started off so well. I was reading the notes of the FTX Crypto Cup, and he literally started off with 100%. And here he started off with 2 losses, and one against Anish Giri was especially devastating. But he's managed to bounce back. He beat Liam Le, and yesterday, what a thriller that was against Duda. Yeah. So definitely, he's all about the learning. And what I always love about Prag is that when you ask him about those great moments, he's just so chill about it. He probably doesn't even think that his victory against Magnus, like all the way back to the Air Things Masters, was that big a deal.
When he's older, he'll look back and be nostalgic, and he'll appreciate it more, maybe. But yeah, I guess when players are young, we're very in the moment. We don't look at past achievements, really. And that's what's been the main cause, I feel, of his success to this date. And meanwhile, though, this long think could come back to bite him. Prag, 3 minutes. He's got very sensible move at his disposal if he wants. He can bring that other black rook, the rook on f8, into the centre, onto the d file. That's pretty much an automatic. You can move the black queen. You advocated, Jovanka, just lining up the black queen with her light squared bishop. We showed these ideas on the analysis board, and they're all very relevant. They don't worsen your position. But do you really need to calculate here? Do you really need to spend 3.5, 4 minutes on one move when it's not maybe yet the critical moment? Okay, this is the best he can come up with as well. It's a decent move, giving the black king some breathing space. But was it worth nearly 4 minutes on the clock?
No, unless he was considering something aggressive. It just seems like a simple improving move. The one thing that I would be uncomfortable with if I had Magnus's position is the queen is staring down at the black rook. And that makes me very, very nervous. So I would just move the queen.
Like create a c-file?
Exactly. Can't handle the tension there. Yeah. And, I mean, I was also a little bit surprised by Prag's last move, I have to say. I was expecting something a bit more direct, just especially because we've seen Prag play in a very forthright manner. He tends to force things and just put Magnus under a little bit more pressure.
Yeah, it feels like he had to fight his instincts, all of his natural urges, Prag, just to play a quiet pawn move. He wanted to capture a piece, he wanted to find something direct, find some complications, but they just don't exist in this position. Both sides are so stable, totally symmetrical pawn structure. Those knights against bishops in the center of the board, they balance each other out, and I'm expecting Magnus to just move his rook into the center. Again, a long think, though. It feels like both of the players, they know that this is the crucial game today, potentially in the whole tournament. And yeah, it feels like they're just burning time because they just can't stand this tension. Yeah, just move the rook into the center, Magnus. That's what I would do, at least. What else could he consider? Move the white queen to a safer square.
Yeah.
They're not going to change the game, though. They're not going to be earth-shattering moments, earth-shattering moves. They're just very simple, calm moves. And you have to play those a bit quicker, I feel.
Yeah.
3.5 minutes now for the world #1.
Yeah, and you talked about earth-shattering and tension, and I've just taken a peek at the game between Wesley So and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. And there's been a complete turnaround because Wesley now is struggling with the white pieces against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. So
wow, for the tournament, that could be huge.
This could be huge. So, gosh, the excitement is building.
Yeah, if Duda strikes back and goes on to win that match, if Prag strikes back in this one and goes on to win this match, then we could see everything decided tomorrow with 3 or 4 players still in the race for first prize. But Magnus will want to clinch the tournament now by winning this match, this game. And he does go for your move, Jovanka. You predicted the future.
I always worry that the players are playing my moves. And I'm thinking, either it's a very natural move or perhaps you're playing at the level of an international master.
That's a very strong level.
It is a very strong level, I have to say. But also a little bit worrying.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the rooks have lined up, all of them on those central files now, the C and D files. But the plugs of those open files, the knights and bishops, they remain. And how are you ever going to break that tension? It feels like we will be reduced to a simple waiting game. Neither side coming up with a plan here. Who is going to blink first? Who's going to crack under the tension? I mean, this is the most tense position I've seen ever, I think, where still so many pieces on the board, yet so few plans, so few logical plans. Yeah. Normally, if there's a lot of pieces on the board, one player will be playing on one side of the board, the other player will be playing on the other flank, and it's kind of a race. Who's quicker with their plans? Here, both sides have the same plan, and that's just to sit and stabilize. It's so rare.
It is very rare, and there we see Magnus centralize. I'm expecting Prag just to also improve the queen, and then again hand the move over to white. There's nothing very clear cut, as you mentioned. You know, there's no pawn advances, and did not expect this one. I mean, I don't think it's wrong, because after all, the position is pretty harmless for both sides. But
at least it's a plan.
There's a plan. You know, the knight is getting ready to maneuver itself over to G5, and this is going to ask some unpleasant questions to Magnus. What are you going to do about that bishop? It was very unexpected on my behalf, but I love what Prag is doing.
Yeah, and the only way you can really imbalance this position is to get the bishop pair. So, for example, if white takes a slow timeout, if white pushes a pawn, copy what black did a few moves ago, the knight will jump out, and as you said, Jovanka, this tension is almost unbearable. You don't really want to run away with this bishop. There's no good squares for it to go. But if you allow the exchange, or if you take this black knight, for example, then suddenly black has the advantage because black's bishop on the light squares has targets. Long term, it's going to look down towards the white king. It's also going to look on this side of the board towards some weak pawns. You need to keep your bishops on the board for later. Ideally, Magnus wants to trade off this bishop for its counterpart. He doesn't want to trade it off for one of the black knights. I think the bishop pair is essential. And just as I say that, he does trade it off for one of the knights. And this must be a concrete idea. Strategically, white is in big trouble now, but Magnus has a concrete threat. He has ideas such as jumping forward with the white queen now, hitting the bishop in the center, but also hitting this pawn on G7. Look at the bishop, the white bishop on B2 that was planted there on move 2. It's suddenly come to life. So Magnus playing a move that the computers aren't a big fan of, but he's got a very direct threat in mind. And how does Prag guard against that? It's not so easy. The black knight has retreated to a kind of passive square, kind of bad square here, while white's knights have leapt forward They are still on great posts. Okay, things are heating up. The first exchange, we talked about who would blink. It was Magnus. And will he regret releasing that tension? Suddenly a checkmate threat on the board. This is checkmate in 1 if black captures this pawn with his queen next move. So Magnus has to guard against it. He has to push a pawn forward to kick away black's bishop.
Yeah, and very carefully picks up the f-pawn. This is very instructive because Magnus does not want to weaken himself on the light squares. It's much better to weaken the dark squares. Ooh.
This would have been too ugly.
Definitely, you know, there would be checkmating, threats galore on the light squares. No, no, no. Magnus doing the right thing. But at the same time, this is a concession because suddenly black's bishop, that was very actively placed but biting on granite, is hitting at a soft point. And we see Pragg just trade a set of rooks.
Yep, he takes the rooks off the board and he retreats his bishop. So big threat now. Black is threatening to capture this knight to remove the defender of e3. If the knight disappears, this pawn will drop. So I think Magnus needs to block this diagonal. He needs to block it with his bishop or his knight on the d4 square. So I'm expecting, normally when your opponent has the bishop pair, you want to trade off a set of bishops. So I'm expecting this move just to exchange this dark piece, this dark square bishop. And when that happens, still everything to play for. Computer slightly prefers black. I think that's just because black is extremely active right now, especially with these 3 pieces. But how do you press the advantage? How do you build anything here? It's still a relatively balanced pawn structure. Maybe it's time to get this black knight into the game, just to bring it back where it came from. I don't think you can take time out to start going passive and defending pawns. Okay, Pragg does trade off the bishops. Magnus will recapture most likely with his rook. I guess if you... Oh, he takes with a pawn. Wow. What? Ruining the white pawn structure. This is an isolated pawn now.
Why would he do that?
Very risky. Now this black bishop is fixed on a beautiful post forever. Oh, this is really risky stuff. I think Magnus's only idea is that he wants to go after this pawn. And he also hopes that if the knight is eliminated, then suddenly he'll have 2 connected pawns in the center. But that is a pipe dream. Right now, white is saddled with an eternal weakness, an IQP, an isolated queen's pawn.
It's a big mystery to me, David. You know, it's breaking all the rules. I don't like it because it's just a one-track mind. Yes, it's attacking a pawn, but that pawn can be easily defended. And even if he did get those 2 pawns, I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. If I were Pragg, I would just simply retreat my queen and defend the pawn.
Yep, defend the pawn on b6 and
bring in the knight.
Yeah.
And after you've consolidated the pawn on b6, well, I think it's time to go on the counterattack, start attacking white's weak pawn, which was kindly gifted to him by Magnus's last move.
Yeah, this is so ugly, having this pawn in the center now. White's pieces will be tied down defending it. You can never, ever push forward in the center. Black has a huge long-term advantage. I think you're right, Jovanka. It's not necessarily Pragg's style to retreat, right? He's a counter-attacker. He wants to create threats. He wants to be playing on the front foot. Him and his coach, Ramesh, they have been talking about accelerators, moving the position forward, going active. But sometimes you need to take a step back, and he has sacrificed a pawn. He's just given up a pawn for free. He didn't need to do this, but now he's going active as black. He's trying to break through on the first rank. This position has completely exploded, and we're going to see a race to the finish. Black now is attacking, just like he was in the last game, Pragg, but it has again come at the cost of a pawn. And what do you think? This king, is it in danger? Maybe.
It looks like it's in danger, and no doubt about it. I mean, is there like ideas of rook takes rook, and after that the queen diving into the e3 square just to give some checks? It's so crazy, this position.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that white also has a weak pawn, the pawn on b3. That's going to fall off the board. Yeah. I thought it was unnecessary of Magnus to go pawn hunting. He didn't need to allow this type of activity.
Yeah, and credit to Pragg, he didn't go passive, he went active, and Magnus jumped back. If he had eliminated the black bishop, this looks very sensible. You're a pawn up, so trade pieces. But suddenly the black knight is on an outpost, trying to come into all of these squares, and this would just be too strong. So we do see a rook exchange if we go back to the current position. And now black's knight is heading in anyway. It's going to be hard to prevent this. I think Magnus desperately needs to retreat his queen, block this check, and hope that the queens disappear from the board.
No
but he
way,
steps forward, out into the open.
What is he doing?
This looks so scary. You're allowing the black knight in now. Suddenly the white king, it's living a charmed life, but will it survive? Oh, this one, the evaluation bar reacts as well. I mean, black's queen can even come in from this angle, go behind and start trying to grab some pawns. Suddenly Magnus has lost all control. I think he's panicking. 1.5 minutes each, though. It is still a race. And this one has definitely livened up over the last few moves. Let's go back to the players. Okay, Prag eliminates one of the white knights. Next move, he's coming in. If pawn takes bishop, this is deadly now. Black's knight attacks the white queen. The queen has to step off the second rank, and suddenly, bang! Just disaster now across the second rank. A check, and this is deadly. And if the white queen takes, which it might have to, then black will do the same. Black can give a check. I'm not sure which angle. This check, and suddenly, disaster on the second rank. It's looking like Prag is in charge. White, in order to alleviate the pressure, is going to have to retreat his queen. But now the white pawns are going to start dropping. And we will see Prag give this check, I feel. This looks very strong now for black. He's turned it. We could see a massive comeback.
Yeah, I absolutely think we're going to see it. We are going to see Prag turn the tables. And wow, he's been so ruthless, actually, in his last few moves. He's been clinical, he's been precise, but this is Prag's his strengths. This is what he excels at. I don't know why Magnus is playing it into Prag's hands.
Yeah, I mean, Magnus, just that one pawn capture in the centre. Why? It's just so ugly. You're in a situation, you're ahead in the match. I think Magnus, he feels at this point, he's had such a good tournament, he thinks he can get away with anything. But sometimes you just have to play it safe. And talking of getting away with anything, he's really playing with fire, marching out into the open. That king has no shelter.
I mean, can you play like this? I mean, is this even chess? I mean, this is just breaking the rules. I mean, I don't know what is Magnus doing. He's giving up all the pawns on the right, and he's desperately opening up lines just in order to get a perpetual check. He's trying to bail out.
Yeah, he would love to bail out with a draw here, Magnus. That's the dream right now. But he does shake his head, closing his eyes there. He knows it's all gone wrong. Black's queen can give a bunch of different checks now. She can just drop down one square, check the white king along the diagonal. She can retreat to the g5 square, sitting next to a knight, checking the white king. This is a nasty check. And yeah, what can black play here? Still more checks on the board. You can take a couple of different pawns if you're black. Prag is spoiled for choice. Up on the clock as well, and he's about to go one pawn up on the board. It's just looking phenomenal now. I think it's going to be a miracle if white saves this. White's knight as well. It's looked nice and pretty the whole game, but it's been far away from the defence. That's why the white king has had to run out into the open. It's king and queen. They were divorced again. Prag is so good at spotting it when the opponent's defence is fragmented and divided like that.
And now the heat is on, and it's up to Prag to find a way how to consolidate his position. And he gives check. This is a very sensible, build some time on the clock now that he had ticked under the 1 minute mark. And Magnus offering a repetition, like, would you like a draw? And Prag should, of course, say, no way. Grab the pawn.
I would repeat the position once, Jovanka, gain 10 seconds on the clock. Show the opponent who's boss. Repeat the position twice, but not a third time. Don't go for that draw. And yeah, we'll definitely not see Prag agree a draw here. Even with the clock situation where he's now down, he's got some very sensible moves. Again, just a couple of different checks with black. At the right moment, you can take white's central pawn. You've got to be careful because white's queen is going to go up to the top of the board with some annoying checks. But Prag looks like he's panicking. He gives one check. White has nothing else to do but sidestep. The problem is for black, you can't bring your knight in with a check yet. You would love to plant the black knight on the f4 square, but white's queen covers that square, so maybe you just defend that square. Black's pawn can step forward to g5, getting that black knight in.
Oh, but you know, all those moves, they come with their risks, because regardless of what the computer says, you know, you're going to allow white this huge pass pawn, and it's not an easy decision to make. So instead, Prag has just gone for repeating the position as much as possible. But the more he does that, the more time Magnus gets on the clock and the more confident he becomes.
Yeah, and Magnus now is happy not to repeat the moves. Now the black queen can't give check from behind. I feel Prag has let something slip here. He's checked from the wrong angle. What is the black queen doing on this side of the board? It could have grabbed a couple of pawns on the other flank, and I think that would have been very safe. But suddenly, there's only one last check available to Pragg. He only had a few seconds there. OK, he's captured a pawn, but now the queens are coming off. Magnus has found a way to get the queens off.
Oh, no, and this is going to be a turnaround.
Yeah, I think Pragg forgot about this check. Suddenly, the queens disappear. Look at the left side of the board. White has 2 versus Black's 1. White is going to promote a pawn, just make a new queen. Black's knight is too far away. Complete turnaround in just one move. The queens are coming off, but look at Magnus. He's not hesitating. It's a race, but White is winning the race. This pawn is captured, and White's new A-pawn is too close. It's going to make a new queen.
Yeah, and there it comes. The A-pawn is marching, and Pragg is desperately moving his knight to cover the promotion square. But look at the White king. It's coming in. And what a turnaround. And such heartbreaking turn of events for Praggnanandhaa. Yeah. Just one move.
And he knows it. He looked out the window. One move. The queen's coming off. And yeah, this is why having an active king, it's a matter of balance. You don't want to activate too early while the queens are on because you might get checkmated. But in an endgame, White's king now is going to go up the board. It's just going to take a pawn. It's going to chase down that black knight, and White's making a new queen. Wow, Magnus, he kind of survived that balancing act on the tightrope for so long, and he's being rewarded for it. Black's king, just one move too slow. It needs to sprint over to that left flank, but it can't get there. Yeah. Magnus, he built up 2 minutes on the clock. Wow. Yeah. Impressive defending from the world number 1.
I have to say, you know, you have to hand it to Magnus because he played the most unusual chess ever. I mean, I was completely, like, flabbergasted. I've never seen the like. And Praggnanandhaa too, he was also baffled, and it cost him time, and he panicked at the end. And there, not much time on clock, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and Pragg does have a hopeless position, I'm afraid.
Yep, White's king is simply hunting down that black knight. You can trap that black knight now, and I think that will spell the end.
Wow. It's so dramatic right now in the tour finals, everyone. Not only is Magnus Carlsen probably going up by 2 points in the match against Pragg, that means with only a draw, if this is the result, in Game 3, he will win the tour finals. And just there, Wesley So went up by 2 points in the San Francisco arena against Jan-Krzysztof. He will only need a draw in Game 3 to win that match. But Wesley, he needs Magnus to lose today's match to have any hopes of winning the tour finals. The only thing he can do is try to win his games, Wesley So, and hope Pragg does the job against Magnus. Arjun Erigaisi has also gone up by 2 points in his match against Liam Leh. Mamedyarov is up by 1 point in the match against Anish Giri. And in this one, is there any hope for Pragg?
There's a small glimmer of hope. That is, if White does get greedy and take that black knight at the wrong moment, White's king could actually get trapped in the corner. So that's why Pragg is waiting. He's saying, please take my knight, please take my knight. And if White does capture that black knight, the black king will shuffle across one square. Yeah, suddenly White is a bit stuck. Mm-hmm. I think maybe you can get away with that, but perhaps you shouldn't rush if you're Magnus Carlsen. Maybe you just push a few pawns, re-centralize the white knight, and you wait for the right moment to just pick off Black's piece in the corner. Yeah.
I agree with you there, David, because if you're objective about the position, Black is totally tied down, can't do a thing. So you don't need to rush to take the knight. Instead, like you say, advance some pawns, move the knight, and wait for Black to move.
Yeah, just to show the one risk, if you do get greedy and capture this black knight, then suddenly you're stuck. The white king cannot escape. If you, for example, try to give a check to drive away the black king just moves, and still no escape for the white king. Also, remember, the white knight can't get too greedy, can't run away too far, because black does have a central pawn, a pass pawn of his own. So white's knight will have to retreat, return, and block this pawn. It feels like this should be winning anyway, but you have to be very careful because you're essentially playing without a king, and this pawn doesn't actually make a difference anymore on a7. So I'm expecting Magnus to hesitate, to pause. He's using all of his remaining time, and I think he can just simply retreat his knight, keep the tension. OK, he even goes back with his king. He leaves the black knight where it is. This is a dead piece anyway. First, he's going to hunt down some pawns with the white king. He might even take this guy at some point and then go back for the black knight. It's a bit surprising. He is really unsure of how to win this, Magnus. This is where evaluation bar versus human, it's so different. From a human point of view, it's not as easy as the computer shows, and Magnus does step back to capture this pawn. At least now Pragg can block the white king's path in towards his knight, but Magnus is playing for Zugzwang. He's hoping later on to break through and go for this knight once again. Still winning, but less straightforward now, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is less straightforward, but at the same time, it's kind of easier for white, less calculation involved, and more about improving the pieces. And there you can see Magnus putting his king opposite Black's king. This is just great technique, taking something that we call the opposition.
Yep, and going for Zugzwang. Black's knight only has one legal move. It can come out with a check, but it will have to return into the corner. Pragg, meanwhile, his dream is to exchange off all the pawns on the right half, because white has one remaining pawn on h2, which is a potential queen. So Pragg wants to trade off if he can, but it will again be a race. Black is playing without a knight temporarily, remember? And can Black kick away white's knight and then go after white's a-pawn while being in time to stop white's h-pawn from running? Magnus, he's spent all his time there. Has he calculated his way to victory? Pragg here, he just has to go for white's a-pawn. He has to free up Black's knight, and he has to cross his fingers and hope that the Black knight can jump across later to stop white's h-pawn. But it feels like it shouldn't be possible. Knights, remember, are terrible defenders when it comes to stopping rook's pawns, a-pawns and h-pawns. Valuation bar reacts, however.
Ooh.
The Black knight is out of jail. It was allowed to survive. It does feel, however, like it should still be winning for white. The evaluation bar does recorrect itself. But can Magnus hold off that Black knight? If he can sacrifice it, Pragg, for that white h-pawn, draw.
Yeah.
But it's still far from possible.
Well, I have now the in-game table base, which tells me that as long as Magnus starts pushing the h-pawn, completely winning. And the most obvious winning move is actually just to take the pawn on f6 with the king.
Yep, that looks very strong, very logical as well. Black's knight is going to try and come to capture that white h-pawn, but it shouldn't work. It should be too slow. And notice how Black's king, even if it grabs that white a-pawn, is miles away from the action. So that's why having these h-pawns, these a-pawns, they're so effective in knight endgames. In rook endgames, they're the worst type of pawn to have. In most endgames, they're the worst type of pawn to have. But in knight endgames, they're beautiful because knights can only stop these corner pawns from one side. And OK, Magnus steps back into the centre, and the question is now, can he start motoring?
Yep. And this is also a win. And here, everything loses, apparently. There is nothing that white can do to spoil the win. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Only one move now. Only one move for white to draw, and that is that knight has to go and protect the pawn on a7. It has to jump to, yes.
Yeah. Yep, so it's white playing for the win, Black playing for the draw. So he does protect his pawn, keeps it alive, and Black's pieces, they're both stuck, both completely paralysed. Black's king in the corner, Black's knight stopping the advance of white's h-pawn. We should say as well, if Black can give his knight up for the h-pawn, even if white's a-pawn survives now, it is a draw, because Black's king is in the corner. There's no way to break through. It will always be stalemate. So you have to somehow sneak past that guardian of the h5 square, the Black knight. White's king might have to go the long way around. It might have to go kind of round and behind and then towards that Black knight. There's no way towards it yet. OK, he steps across. And here I'm expecting Black to continue waiting. Black's king is just going to go back and forth, back and forth. And now it would be a huge blunder if Magnus pushes his h-pawn, because Black can take it, and that would be a draw. OK, now he moves his knight across. You have to kick away the Black knight with the white knight. And he's doing so.
He is doing it. He's removing that guardian, as you mentioned. And now the h-pawn comes, and yep, according to the table bases, completely lost for Black.
Black's king, again, it's caught on the wrong side of the board. This is the second or third time in the game the opponent's king is caught on the wrong side. And it's trying to race its way over, but kings are so slow. They're like old men with their walking sticks. It's just one step at a time. But pawns are just as quick, unfortunately, for Pragg here. And that pawn is 2 squares away. The Black knight has to stop it. But now we will see white's knight do a bit of a dance. It will drop back, and it will try to kick away this defender, the Black knight. White can also create a path in for his king by doing that.
Yeah,
White's knight is going to move.
But white does have to be accurate. The winning attempt is actually to move the knight back to the third row, to the e3 or g3 squares, and maneuver itself that way. If it actually sprung forward to the d6 square, that would actually turn the tables.
How about
and it would
d4,
be a draw.
Jovanka?
If you went to d4, it's also winning.
That, to me, is the most logical here. You can retreat your knight to a few different squares. As Jovanka mentioned, these two are winning. To me, the most logical is to centralise. This is the first move that popped into my mind, because now the black king cannot come towards the pawn. Magnus does play this. There's a trick now. If the black king starts moving across towards the pawn, there's a nasty knight check, deflecting away the black knight, and white is left with only a pawn in his whole army. But it's enough. There's no way to stop this pawn from promoting to a new queen. So this is so clever by Magnus. He's cut off the black king from advancing to any of these three squares that would all be impossible now. So the black knight has to wait, but now the white king is coming, and it's only a couple of moves away from dislodging the knight. This one is game over. You see Prag look away. The knight is going to get kicked away. White will make a new queen. Game over. What a turnaround.
Magnus on fire. This is so impressive stuff by the world number one. And he will now be one draw away from winning the tour finals.
Yeah, he was on the brink of defeat, and also Wesley had let it slip. Duda was about to win. Suddenly, both games, around the same moment, they turned around. And here we go. White's knight is irrelevant. It's key to go after black's piece. And look at the two pawns. White is clearly ahead in any race.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to do. Prag has to move his knight out of the way. You can move it to g5, you can retreat it to f8 with a check. Either way, white is going to continue chasing that black knight.
Yeah. And unfortunately, okay, after this knight moves to the square, you can actually just capture the pawn and attack the knight, and you're still winning. And this looks so natural.
Yeah, remove the final defender of that black knight. The knight has to retreat, it has to blockade. Knights, we say, are normally good blockaders, but just, again, it's these A and H pawns. They're the only pawn they struggle against. And here we go. Prag is going to resign. No way to stop white's pawn anymore. And Magnus does take the win.
Incredible. Winning the second game in a row. Magnus Carlsen is up by 2 points. And he can not only decide the match, he can win the tour finals in the next game.
As well, the decisive moment came when this time Prag declined the repetition and collapsed immediately. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was better at that point, so I think there were several ways for him to play for win there. But yeah, Queen B1 was probably not correct. And then, yeah, I mean, when he took on D5, that was just crazy because, you know, black can never win. And yeah, I mean, my technique was not great. Like at some point I just mouse slipped. I mean, I was quite unsure whether to go like king e4 immediately, and then I just clicked on the c5 square, which I didn't intend to. So and then the king just went there. So at that point, I was just out of it. But yeah, fortunately, it was not enough to mess up the win.
And 2 games you're ahead. 1b3 Caro-Kann. Do you think the opening approach is working out well?
No, I mean, in this game, I had some severe PTSD from the game against Karyakin that I lost in the World Championship. Like, the position was very similar at the very least. So, yeah, the openings aren't working great, but also, yeah, in this game, like, he was outplaying me at some point, like weakening my king a bit, and but you know, decisive moments I've been a little bit better. That's all it's been so far.
Thanks.
He's up by 2 points. Magnus Carlsen in a game where he played 1b3, where he apparently mouse slipped. Interesting game, David.
Yeah, and he said he was suffering from the after effects of a defeat that was very similar to this game as well, many, many years ago. So it did come down to some critical moments. Magnus said he was outplayed. Prag outplayed him completely, but in those critical moments, Prag did crack. And it was here where black had a decisive advantage. All Prag needed to do was to keep things simple and capture a pawn. This does look a bit risky because White's able to run through with his pawn, but Black's knight is in time to just retreat and stop this pawn if necessary over the next few moves. Instead, however, of capturing this pawn, Prag confused himself. He gave a few checks, he checked from behind a few times, and then he checked from this square. And Magnus did mention that this was a poor choice of square by Prag because after the White king retreated, this was the worst possible moment to capture White's pawn in the centre, because after a check, suddenly this retreat, queen to c2, forcing the queens off. This is a check. The queens are traded, and as we saw in the game, it was all about White's a pawn. Black's pieces are caught on the wrong side of the board. This black knight, the black king, they take a long time to travel across, and as we saw, the king moved, but White forced his way through b4 and pushing this pawn. We saw that Prag put up some good resistance. He managed to get his knight across to blockade this pawn just in time, but it wasn't enough. White is fully in control in this endgame.
It's going to be a must-win situation for Prag to have any hopes of taking this to tie breaks. He has the white pieces and must win it in Game 3. Magnus Carlsen, with a draw or a win in Game 3, will win the Tour Finals. He's up by 2 points. The end of the 2022 season of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour is getting close. It's been a super fun season. We had a lot of fun in the studio as well with a bunch of challenges, amongst other the Play Magnus challenge. We're gonna take a look at a few videos of that now. First of all, we're gonna take a look at when Simon beat Magnus 10.
Oh my God, checkmate's coming already.
Wow.
I'm getting nervous now, though.
Crushing it, Simon.
I am, but I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm a piece up. This kid needs to learn some manners. Not resigning. Does he know who I am? I'm a grandmaster.
Ginger
okay, look at this.
Simon's got it. It's guaranteed now. Not even a challenge. Wow.
They're all coming on.
Unless he can't do it.
Come on. I'm probably going to stalemate, aren't I?
Ooh, you didn't want that checkmate in one move.
No, I'm just playing with him, you know.
And 30 seconds left on the clock. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
For the first time, we have a winner. Simon, congratulations. You won in 50 moves.
Oh, why am I so nervous?
Just bide your time, David. Play quickly.
Okay, Rook takes. He's got so many tricks in the position. No!
Oh, David.
Okay, I've just got to get on the leaderboard.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Okay, I'll try and survive as long as possible.
Get those moves in.
Oh my God. I knew this would happen. No time. Queen takes pawn, and it's checkmate next move. 72 moves.
72 moves. You would have won the Celebrity Challenge last year.
Yeah, but oh dear.
That was a big moment. But David, you lost to Magnus 10.
I have no excuses. Magnus was too strong at that age, and yeah. So many blunders. I'm getting old.
Only 2 minutes on the clock then. And David, he did get another chance to beat Magnus 10. Take a look at this epic moment. Can you win this in 30 seconds?
He can do it.
Okay.
David's very fast on the mouse.
Ah, whoops. Here we go. They're coming. Pawns coming. Okay.
Come on, David. 20 seconds left.
Take the king in.
Yeah, I'm just going to go for it now. He's going to start attacking me. Should not have allowed this. No, it's getting complicated. No, it's getting really complicated now.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Too nervous.
Don't lose on the clock, David.
Okay.
10 seconds. Is that enough time for David to checkmate?
Yeah. Yes, king forward.
I know, I got this. I'm getting complicated.
Quick.
Oh, quick.
Yes!
Yes! David Howell beats Magnus Carlsen at 10 years old. Finally! What a game, David!
I'm spent, Kaja. I need to have a lie down.
This is one of my favorite moments from the season on the tour, David. The look on your face when you beat Magnus there.
I think that's been the highlight of my year, Kaja. That's the biggest achievement of my chess career, but I did it with 3 seconds. I think the magic ingredient was the chair, the gaming chair. That was the difference, and that was how I managed to win.
Yeah. Oh, this has been so much fun, but The Play Magnus app is actually an ancient app. There's a new app in town now. It's called the Magnus Chess Academy, and you can download this app now. It's launched, Magnus Carlsen's own official app for learning and improving your chess. And Magnus, he has tested a game on this app.
Oh, wow. This is fun. Can I really checkmate here? Oh wow, this is a proper helpmate. This one is lovely. Where can I even give a check with the rook? What? What is this? Oh, pawn there. Okay, so let's see, bishop and... yeah, okay. What? Where else can you put the pawn? Ah. Okay, the queen lands there. Okay, I'm not gonna make this in time. Ah, pawn c5, queen d6, bishop c8. Ah, that was weak. That was a fun game. Very good visualization training, training mating patterns in a fun way. I could definitely see myself getting addicted to this one.
It's definitely something to get hooked on, the Magnus Chess Academy app, with a bunch of cool games and the world #1 and the 2022 tour winner, Magnus Carlsen. He's got to be in a good mood now because he's up by 2 points against Pragnananda in day 6 match. And if he gets a draw or a win in game 3, Magnus Carlsen will be not only the winner of the Champions Chess Tour 2022, also he will be the winner of the tour finals. We have a bunch of must-win situations. Duda also has to win it against Wesley So in game 3 to take it to tie breaks. Liam has to win game 3 against Ergaisi to have any chances of winning that match. And Giri, he needs at least a draw. If he loses game 3 against Mamedyarov, he will lose another match, Anish Giri. So it is a dramatic round of games coming up. We're going to follow the match between Magnus Carlsen and Prag inside Shack 15 because this is the game that can end the tour finals results. Magnus Carlsen can win it with only a draw in this game. He's going to have the black pieces. He played a fantastic first game with the black pieces. What do you expect from this game, Jovanka?
I'm expecting Magnus to be rock solid. You know, I don't think he'll necessarily repeat the same opening that he played in game 1. I think it'll be something different just to keep Prag on his toes. But either way, Magnus, I think he will try to shut down the position. He'll try to lock up Prag's activity.
But he wants to finish in style, right, David? If this is the game that decides the tour finals, I have a feeling Magnus, he knows everyone is watching it. He wants to finish in style.
Yeah, that's the modern Magnus that at least I call it modern Magnus, when he just wants to entertain. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily care about results as much as he used to. He's stepping away from the World Championship. He plays chess for his own enjoyment, but also for the fans' enjoyment. And he did open with 1b3 in the last game, remember, Magnus. So we might see some opening surprises in store for this one too.
And we have heard Magnus really praise young Prag today. Really enjoyed their fights over the 2022 season with Prag just always going for a fight in their games, not being afraid, even if it is world #1, Magnus Carlsen. Entering the arena for game 3 here on day 6. There is also a day 7. If Magnus loses the match today, that is still a possibility. If Prag wins both of the next rapid games and takes it to tie breaks, then it will not be decided. So the other players will definitely hope that Prag is able to make a big comeback against Magnus in this game 3. Here he comes, Magnus Carlsen, for game 3. All right, this is going to be a big one. What do you expect from the opening, Jovanka? I guess Prag is not someone to open with a b3 or strangeness.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And instead he opens with his king's pawn, and we have a French defense on the board.
Yeah, so an opening we have seen from Magnus earlier in the tour finals. He used this to defeat Anish Giri as black. And will we see lightning strike twice? Okay, Prag didn't go for the move that Giri went for, expanding forward in the center. Instead, he brings his bishop out, and Magnus plays a really old move. Very rare move. He sacrifices a pawn. So we saw bishop for knight trade, and if white wanted, if Prag wanted to, he could have captured black's pawn in the center, and there wouldn't have been direct consequences there. You could get away with that, but black maybe would have gained a bit of time. Instead, Prag taking a timeout and pushing a3. I must admit, I've never seen this position before. I've seen the position up until one move back, but this is really rare already, and Prag is playing instantly, not surprised at all, despite the fact that Magnus, surely he can't have played this. Look at him retreating his queen now. He's definitely putting on a show. He's not obeying the opening rules. White is 3 tempi ahead in development. White's minor pieces are all out. Black is faster home asleep, all of his pieces.
I think this is part of his anti-youth strategy, where he plays very strange, provocative chess, says to his opponent, hey, come get me. But ultimately, Magnus does have a solid foundation. I mean, take a look at that triangle pawns. It is okay. That is very flexible. And Magnus does have the bishop pair. The problem is that his position is very, very cramped. I would not recommend that you play this at all. I mean, I think it's only for specialized grandmasters to play this way, not for the average Joe.
Yeah, I might play like this in blitz, but not against someone as strong as Prag, and definitely not in rapid chess, where with 15 minutes, Prag, also with a development advantage, it feels like he's got everything he dreamed of in a must-win situation. White's queen is going to step forward, White's rooks are going to centralize, and the pressure is all on black. How is Magnus really going to alleviate the pressure? Look at black's light-squared bishop as well. How is that ever going to get in the game? Yeah, I'm surprised, I must admit, that the evaluation bar is not impressed at all. I've got to go and research, go and study my openings, because I'm learning something new in this one.
Yeah. I must admit, I do feel that White's pawn advance in the centre is going to be so dangerous that I would be just like so eager to relieve the tension and trade a set of pawns in the middle. But that is just my style, because otherwise I just don't see what black is doing.
Yeah, would you get tempted to castle now? It looks like black needs to castle at some point, but black's king, as soon as it commits, might come under some attack.
I wouldn't necessarily be tempted to castle, just because White's bishop on d3 is on the perfect attacking diagonal, and I would be very nervous of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so White's bishop well placed, White's knights ready to hop forward if allowed. Somehow Magnus, again, taking liberties, pushing a pawn. He's not afraid. As long as he closes the centre, this is just the theme we've seen throughout this season. It's just modern chess, and it's Magnus being provocative, leaving his king in the middle as long as possible, just while the centre is blocked, while there are no open lines. But now the white rooks are going to line up against that black king. One of the rooks will occupy the e-file, and how much longer can he continue to push the boat out like this? I mean, I'm half impressed, I'm half just shocked by what's happening. It does feel like this is an advert for what not to do in the opening as black. But Magnus is getting away with it time and again, every single game.
Yeah. It is solid. It's just cramped.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the good news and the bad news. And I mean,
it takes a certain level of mastery to play cramped positions, I guess.
But I mean, this is Magnus's sense of humour. I mean, I have seen on some streams that Magnus has done, like that he just gives his opponent literally 8 moves in a row, and then goes and beats them. You know, some people can do that, some people can't. Actually, I should say most people can't. And Magnus developing his light squared bishop, but it's looking at a wall of pawns. But still, those wall of pawns that black has means the position is incredibly solid. It's going to be very difficult for Prag to break it down.
Yeah, and that strategy you mentioned, just giving your opponent loads of free moves. Recently, when I was writing an article just in memory of Mike Basman, who passed away, I was looking at this immortal waiting game, or that was the term used for it, and I think he gave his opponent, was it 12 moves for free? He just waited, he moved his bishop back and forth, then he moved his king back and forth. 12 moves he gave a world-class opponent, and then he went on to win. So sometimes that's a strategy. You kind of lure your opponent forward, then they leave weaknesses behind and you counterattack. Maybe that's one of these situations. He's just going to say to Prag, you advance, you push, you commit, and I'll react no matter what you do.
Yeah, I have to say, I did see that game. It was played by Ulf Andersson against Mike Basman. And what made me giggle a lot was the comments on Twitter after people posted that link, the Immortal Waiting Kit. Why did you make me waste my time looking at one side just shuffling the pieces backwards and forwards? And literally it was like the king moved to, is it H7 on G8?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it just went there about 10 times. I mean, it was incredible.
It's a viable strategy if the centre is blocked, and that is the situation right now between Prag and Carlsen. So Prag just centralising all of those pieces. This is essentially what we teach in kindergarten in chess. Just put your knights on F3 and C3, put your rooks on E1 and D1, put the white queen out, put the white bishop on this square. This is exactly what we teach youngsters when they're new to the game. But the question is, what next? And that's what Magnus is trying to ask. I think we will see black castle now, surely. Or maybe the black queen will move. Is there time for that luxury? And then it's up to Prag to come up with a plan, a productive plan.
Yeah.
White's already got the ideal setup. It's just what comes next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think the queen will move. I think we're going to see some other waiting move.
Another shuffle.
Yeah, I mean,
the wait goes on.
Exactly, because I think Magnus is just determined just to put the ball in Prag's courts and say, you take the decisive measure. If I castle, then it's very easy for White to come up with a plan. If there you go.
Yep. Why castle? Why commit? It's only move 12, move 13. And now Magnus, he's hinting that he might castle even on the queen side, on that left side. And remember, he castled on move, what was it, 22 in the previous game, in one of the previous games today. Yeah, he still wants to delay that as long as possible. And it is up to Prag. How does he get his knights into the game? Yeah. It's not 100% clear. I've got to give Magnus credit for that. It's not clear what Prag should be doing here.
The bar is roughly to the middle, but in game 3 between Duda and So, the bar is already way up for Wesley So. And look at Duda. Oh, he's frustrated already. He has to win this game. Otherwise, he will lose the match. And let's hear what Wesley So said after winning game 2.
Wesley, you're leading the match with 2 game wins. You look like you're having a lot of fun on the board today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jan-Krzysztof. He's a very strong, very young player. I have played quite a number of games with him. He's a Polish #1. And he's a very resourceful, very tactical player. I think I first played him in 2015 in the French League when he was about a teenager. I think he was playing board 1 for some team, and we played the Breyer, and he defended very strongly. And after that, I since had a lot of respect for him.
And as usual, with a 2 game point lead, strategy for game 3 would be?
Yeah, play for draw. I mean, I think the first game went very smoothly. I think Jan is not the best theoretician, like compared to Anish Giri, for example. But he's, like, seems to be plays more for the middle game. And I think A3 in the first game was an unfortunate move because I looked briefly and after the game, after A3, Black's just slightly better. So I had absolutely no problems in the opening. And I mean, he probably could have made a draw in the first game, but he got a bit too aggressive. And the second game went out of my control. I mixed up the opening. Like, this D takes C4 line is not very common. But I think after queen B1, B6, I think knight G5 is probably a mistake. I should just play like bishop E2, castle short, and enjoy a pretty decent position, I think, yeah, after queen B1, B6. Because in the game, it got a bit out of control. Like, I couldn't regain my pawn, and I obviously had very good compensation, but I also had no idea what to do because I had maybe 3 different plans. In the end, I decided to go for the most aggressive plan with knight H4 and E5. But he's got a lot of pawns, and I suspect that Black's got to be better at some point. Like, I didn't want to take the exchange. But in the end, I decided I just have to grab some material. So when played queen D4, queen C2, B5, Black was taking over. Like, I was quite unhappy with my position. But I was very happy to find this move rook E1 because attacking pawn E7, because I realized I just have to try and mate him. Otherwise, he's going to promote his queenside pawns. when he played queen d3, maybe I should just trade queens and try to make a draw with rook e3. But I wasn't sure if it was a clear draw. So I played queen c1, knight g6, rook e6. I think king f7 was just a blunder, losing a pawn. So he should play c5, and then I don't know if black is better or whatever.
Wesley, it's amazing to see you play out all the variations right after the game. So even after winning, what has just happened still goes on in the mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think the second game was very, very interesting. I mean, I think Jan had pretty good chances and he didn't need to lose. But now with the 2-0 lead, I mean, you should, you know, unless I really mess it up somewhere. I mean, 2-0 is such a big lead in a 4-game match.
It is a big lead. Game 3 coming up. We'll see you back on the screen. Thanks, Wesley.
And while that interview was going, that was recorded, of course, before this round going on. The bar has come slightly down for Wesley, but he only needs a draw in Game 3 to win the match against Duda, raising his eyebrows there. And is Duda tilting?
Massive tilt here from Duda. He looks like he just wants the day to be done.
Yeah.
He wants it to be over. And actually in that game, Wesley had a winning advantage as black after 8 moves.
Whoa.
And Wesley, he's played it slightly safe over the last few turns, which is understandable, only needing a draw. But Duda, not enjoying life right now. And I think we've all had this feeling at some point in our chess careers. Sometimes things just go against you. Your opponent's playing great, you're blundering, and yeah, that's life.
Apparently he's been sitting like this for 3 minutes, Duda. He lost the match yesterday and against Prague. Today, it's not looking good for him. And tomorrow, he faces Magnus Carlsen on the final day of the tour finals. Pragnananda, he is also in a must-win situation here in Game 3 against Magnus. And is anything special happening with the last few moves?
Well, the position has clarified since we last talked about it. We said the centre was very blocked, and instead of blocking it even further, Prague did trade off one set of pawns, and now he's kind of gone straight for the black king, but in a weird way. He's planted his knight on h5. That white knight looks very strong on the edge of the board, very close to delivering some checks, maybe even sacrificing itself. But this last move by Prague, he's really desperately trying to eliminate black's knight, which could be a defender.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Jovanka? He's aiming for 2 knights against 2 bishops.
Yeah, I thought he was aiming for checkmate, actually. I thought that Prague is playing in a very desperate, direct style. So with the idea of after bishop takes knight, the knight will then come to f6, and then the queen will find herself all the way on h6. And maybe there's a nasty attack brewing.
White's queen would jump out, and black's king, actually, it's suffocated by its own rooks. It wants some squares simply to run over it wants to run away, but it can't because the rooks are in its own path, and white will add the knight, add the rooks to the attack shortly. This does look very dangerous. So Magnus decides you can't allow this, and of course that would have been initiated by white taking this knight, so Magnus blocks the tension here, and instead it's the bishops that disappear. I'm very surprised by this, I've got to admit, because if you just retreat, if we go back a few moves, what is black's bishop doing? This is the worst piece on the board by a mile. And Prague has just said, yeah, I'm going to swap you off. I'm going to trade you off for my great bishop on this diagonal. To me, it makes zero strategic sense, but he must have some dynamic ideas in mind. He trades off his bishops, and now he goes up with his rook.
Yeah, I agree with you there, David. I mean, I would never have traded off that bishop. I mean, I really do like to attack, but also to have a good strategical advantage. And here, Magnus, well, he's very good, isn't he? He swings his rook to the open line and attacks the pawn. So now Prague has to take a time out, has to push his c-pawn 1 square forward. And then again, Magnus now has a chance to untangle a little bit more on the king side.
Yeah, Magnus gets a chance if he wants maybe to push this pawn forward, kick away the white knight, or he can just continue and start playing on this side of the board. This is what we call a minority attack. I'm not sure whether he'll go for this immediately, but these 2 pawns will undermine these 3. So 2 versus 3, and either way, white will be left with an isolated pawn and a long-term target. It's still Prague trying to attack, but he might not get that opportunity. Magnus is starting to kick him back.
Okay. Ooh, important game. If Magnus gets a draw, he will win the tour finals. He is playing in San Francisco. And Tanya is not the only chess celebrity in San Francisco. Maurice Ashley is in the house, Tanya.
He is in the house. He's the resident grandmaster for the day. And of course, we just can't get enough of the chess action that's going on inside the playing arena. We've got the puzzle set up, which is the puzzle of the day for the viewers. Maurice, don't look just yet. Now, for those of you who don't know, Maurice is not just a grandmaster, but he also creates puzzles. So it's going to be interesting and fun to watch how he approaches this one. This one's for our viewers and players for the day, Maurice. It's super tough. Just a heads up, David said it's one of the toughest mate in twos. All the best. I'm going to start your time. Take us through how you approach this position. Good luck.
It's not good when David Howell says this is one of the toughest made in twos, but I do solve a lot of puzzles. I do create a lot of puzzles myself. Made in twos, without even looking at the puzzle, they have one fundamental secret. And that fundamental secret is that your move must either threaten mate or it has to be Zugzwang. That's it. So whenever you look at a puzzle, that's the deal. So looking at this, it looks very clean. A lot of times these puzzles are messy, but my eye immediately goes to the H8 square. Like if I could play Queen H8 and mate somehow, that looks like it should be the solution. So I want to play Queen A8. And if you play King takes, I have Queen takes D5. That looks really good. The knight moves away. Queen D5 is also. But wait, there's Knight of 6.
Knight F6.
Queen A. Knight of 6 is
45 seconds.
Knight of 6 is a problem. I don't see a mate. I don't. Also, even with my Queen A8, why isn't this Rook on H6 working? The Rook usually you don't have any kind of. Yeah, you don't usually have any kind of superfluous pieces. The Rook doesn't make sense on the H6 square. I'm not really sure why it's sitting there. Rook H4, these look like ugly moves to play. Queen E1 is also a problem I have to have a response to. Queen 8 looks so perfect.
75 seconds. Is that your answer, Maurice? Do you want to go with Queen 8?
Wait, no. Hold on. Wait a second. Queen F1? Queen F1, oh, that's nice. That's actually quite nice. Queen F1, because after Queen F1, the move that you have to worry about is King takes, but there's this beautiful move, Queen F5. The bishop is pinning the Rook on D5, the Rook is pinning the Queen, and now the Rook on H6 is in play, it's pinning the pawn on G6. Queen F1, that's the kind of move you want to play. That is sexy as ever. Queen F1, yeah, I don't see. Queen takes Rook, I can take, it's mate. The knight can't move because of Queen F6. The Rook C5 is Queen F4. That's ball game.
Wait, is Queen F1 your answer?
Queen F1, it's got to be. That's what you make a puzzle for. This is satisfying. This one is beautiful. Queen F1 is crushing with the queen with 3 mates, F4, F5, and F6. You can't beat that. That's nasty.
Wow. Okay, David, we don't know what the answer is. Maurice has come up with Queen F1. Kaja, David, Jovanka, tell us if that's the right move.
David?
Well, Maurice is the man. He's got it. Queen F1 and Queen F5, especially the second move. Super satisfying.
That's how you do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well done,
Queen
Maurice.
F1.
Queen F1 is beautiful. That's a puzzle.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that segment. And Maurice Ashley is such a legendary grandmaster. He's really praising your puzzle, David.
Yeah, but I've got to praise Maurice. He's put out a great course on Chessboard recently about chess geometry, so I had no doubt he would solve this. The geometry in this puzzle was the key, and also shout out to Maurice because I grew up watching his commentary. I remember my first VHS tape was him commentating with Danny King on a game, I think in 1994. So yeah, one of my favorite players, commentators, great person.
Fantastic. And even, that's not often you hear in chess, it's a sexy answer to this puzzle.
I like that. That's nasty.
Yeah.
And I also have to say a big congratulations to everyone on Twitter who has sent in the answer. Yes.
Wow.
I mean, it's really lovely to see. Like, first of all, as the minutes tick in, people weren't getting it. And then as the time kind of started going, people started working it out. And they were like, yes, it's Queen F1 with this beautiful Queen F5 check. It's very rare that you allow a check and then you deliver a checkmate.
Yeah.
That's so unheard of. But also big shout out to the composer, 1877.
1877.
Charles Alexander Ginsberg. I mean, wow. Just to have the creativity to compose that. And basically, I'm also going to shout out to all the chess composers out there as well. You know, you guys are just entertaining us chess players on a regular basis.
And would this be a good moment to show the answer,
Yeah.
maybe? So the players, they're just maneuvering at the moment, nothing too dramatic happening on the board. We will update you guys with the developments of Prag against Carlsen. But maybe now is the right moment to show what Maurice had solved. This was the mate in two that we gave everyone. Well done to everyone for trying. But as Maurice showed, it's actually very difficult to trap this king in the center of the board. The only way to mate it in 2 moves is to retreat the white queen. This is so counterintuitive to bring it back the whole way. Firstly, you protect your rook. So black's queen, for example, if it takes this rook, now this would end in checkmate. There's nowhere for the king to run. The black knight, if it had moved, would allow the white queen to come up to f6. This is another thing that Maurice mentioned. There's a mate on f6 in this scenario. The king is trapped. And the key, the most beautiful checkmate is here. Black can actually take a knight with check, hitting the white king, but you block a check with a checkmate. This never, ever happens, but you drop your queen on f5, and this is checkmate. It's a triple pin. The black rook can't take the white queen because it is pinned along this diagonal. The black queen can't take the white queen because of a pin along this line, and the black pawn cannot take the white queen because of a pin along the 6th rank. So this is just a beautiful finish and something you'll very, very rarely see. Well done to Maurice and all of those at home who solved it.
That is chess art. That is just beautiful and super difficult. So shout out to everyone who was able to figure it out. And we hope you enjoyed it, trying to solve it, even if you were able to. Even grandmasters struggle with that one. And then this one, I know you showed it to Magnus once as well. Did he solve it?
I think, yes, he did solve it, but I think it took him about the same time as Maurice. So it's really instructive. Maurice, he's very experienced at problem solving and the way to think. We saw his thought process there. He's looking at various moves, but then he sees defensive resources, and it's the same in chess. You see your opponent's ideas, you see yours, and it's just putting them in the right order, making them all fit together nicely. So Magnus solved it. The quickest player I've ever seen solve it was Anish Giri.
Really?
He solved it in maybe 30 seconds, maybe even less. So that was very impressive.
Yeah, but he solved it too quickly. I think that he'd seen it before.
Oh, maybe.
Sorry, Anish.
And meanwhile, this game is heating up slightly. We have had a few developments since we last discussed the position. Let's jump in to show what has happened. Magnus now is pushing pawns on that left side. But we left it here, and we said that the white knight was very strong. It's a potentially powerful attacker, so Magnus tried to kick it back. And actually, this knight had no good retreat squares. If the knight steps back immediately, then black creates a pin. You pin and you win material here. The white rook is doomed. So instead, Prag had to be really creative in order to save his knight. He stepped back with his rook, and now actually the knight might be poisoned. If you take it, you allow the white queen to swoop in, and the black king now in mortal danger. So Magnus decided, in a situation where he just wants to draw, this was too risky, he moved his king across to defend the h6 pawn. This was another pin that Prag reinstated, and suddenly we saw a pawn move, the knight jumping in, getting traded off, and now, yes, Prag is trying to swing his rook across, but there's no clear way in towards the black king. Therefore, Magnus decided there's time to simply push pawns and, again, to push once more. And we do see this minority attack. Now this one pawn is undermining 2 pawns, and white will be left with a weakness on this side. That's guaranteed now. White will be left with an isolated pawn. Long term, black is doing very, very well. Prag has to deliver checkmate. Otherwise, he's going to crash to another defeat in this game. You have to go for the black king somehow. It's not easy, however.
Yeah, and that's why he stepped up with his rook 1 square in order to defend the weak point on c3. And I agree with you, look, the computer says it's better for black, but 2 humans playing, Magnus still very much on the defensive. If he makes one wrong move, that's it. Pragnananda's attack will just crash through.
Yeah. Prag's idea, I think, is to swing one of his rooks across, maybe even both rooks across, and to try and break through on this g6 square, to try and sacrifice here. The white queen is on a great diagonal in terms of attacking, so she's doing a multi-purpose job. She's holding some pawns together. She's eyeing up the black king. And, Magnus still has a couple of accurate moves to find in order to kind of cement his advantage. If he takes a timeout and just moves a rook, for example, then already it gets very scary. You're right about this, Jovanka. If you move the rook again, for example, just to illustrate the point, suddenly the white rook shuffles across, and there's the threat of a breakthrough, a rook sacrifice on this square. Again, just to show this, suddenly the white queen could swoop in. Queen takes pawn, delivering checkmate, and winning this rook as well. Yeah, this is actually very, very scary to deal with. Magnus, however, goes very direct, and he tries to skewer these rooks. He allows the white knight in, though.
I was going to say that. Immediately I would just put that knight on f6, give a check to the king, and let the rest work itself out. So the king will move, probably will step to the g7 square, as you've highlighted. And, OK, where's the way to put pressure on the black position?
Yeah, I worry for Prag, because maybe white's best is to actually repeat the position. White, for example, could jump back with the knight, hoping that the knight is captured, because suddenly lines would open up towards the black king. This is not what Magnus wants. But the problem for Prag is, after the knight drops back, you don't have to take it. You can just sidestep again, and we might see a dance between the knight and king, a check, a sidestep, a check, a sidestep, and the game might be a draw. If you don't go for this, maybe you're just losing as Prag, because remember, there is this skewer of the rooks.
Yeah, but a draw is the same as a loss. So that option, you just cannot play it. Yeah. You just have to do something else. I mean, is there anything else? I mean, for instance, move the rook on... I know, that's the problem. Can you...
Move it across and...
Move it across, and after bishop takes rook...
Just one move too slow, for example. OK, I was going to say he could try stepping this pawn forward, trying to break through with a sacrifice here, but black's bishop is just in time to come back and block.
Yeah.
And, OK, he's going for that immediately, Prag. He's pushed his pawn forward. But what is happening here? Bishop takes rook looks like an automatic.
It does look like an automatic, and I'm guessing that the rook will then slide over to the g3 square, and there is some pressure on the g6 pawn. But again, it feels like it's too slow after bishop takes pawn. Is that possible?
Yeah, bishop takes pawn, rook takes, and suddenly this is ending in checkmate, because the white queen does jump in just in time to support her knight. And look at this, the kiss of death, trapped in the corner. So there is still significant danger in the position.
Mm-hmm.
Prag, OK, yes, it's not working according to a computer, but he's setting some very difficult traps here for a human to navigate. Magnus does take the rook, but how is he going to deal with this mating attack once the rook slides over? Rook takes pawn is devastating if it happens.
Yeah.
OK, the evaluation bar says black is still in charge. How narrow is the path, though? Prag has to slide over with his rook. What is he thinking about? He's a whole rook down. This is the current position, and you cannot take this bishop. You cannot take this piece because you are pinned along the c-file. So you just have to move over. What is he even thinking about here, Prag?
Well, he's probably considering whether he can play pawn takes pawn. Is that something? I mean, I'm just looking at the checks and the captures. So pawn takes pawn, and then the idea is, OK, take the rook and then capture the pawn again.
Yeah, to try and creep in with the white queen. Maybe possible, although it feels like it shouldn't work. For example, black can just defend against any checks. Black's king as well, ready to start running. You've given up 2 rooks here for white. He does go for this, however, Prag. I'm fascinated to know what was happening after the rook moved across towards the black king. That looked very dangerous to me, but Prag didn't go for it. Instead, he takes a pawn. He's giving up 2 rooks to try and win this game, Prag. And can Magnus get greedy? Can he take a second rook? That is the question. I think he can. I think Magnus can just call Prag's bluff here. Maybe there's better, but what can white play?
OK. So I just checked, and apparently the best move is actually to capture the pawn. But Magnus, if he's in a peaceful mood, he can actually just capture the rook, and the game will fizz out into a draw.
OK, and that will clinch today's match for Magnus Carlsen. So if black does take the white rook, then white's knight can actually retreat to h5, and there'll be a checking sequence that black cannot escape, perpetual check and a draw. But that doesn't help Prag. Maybe Prag knows it as well. Magnus looks pretty calm, considering he's being attacked in such a brutal manner.
There is massive drama going on right now. Magnus is looking like he will decide the match and be the winner of the tour finals. Arjun Erigaisi has already, after 3 games, won the match against Liam Le. And Shakhriyar Mamedyarov has right now decided the match against Anish Giri. Winning another game, Mamedyarov. Giri loses that match in 3 games. And actually, Wesley So could also be about to decide the match against Duda. What a day.
Yeah, it's completely unexpected, actually. I mean, going into this day, honestly thought that we would see tie breaks, we would perhaps even see Armageddon. And I thought that the match between Duda and So would be so closely fought that they would perhaps, one person would win, another person would win, it would go down to the wire. And I did not ever dream that all 4 matches would end in 3 games. That, for me, is the shock. It's the biggest shock ever.
And of course, the biggest match win will be for Magnus Carlsen, not only winning the match against Prague, but also winning the tour finals. What do you think, David, will be the result in the game? Do you think Magnus will win it?
Yes, he's got a load of time on his clock. He's got almost 6 minutes. There's not that much calculation to be done. The first move you look at is taking White's rook off the board, being greedy, why not? And once you see that White has nothing more than a perpetual check, you go for it. I think the only thing that might stop Magnus from taking White's rook is if he really wants to win, because he's feeling super confident. But a draw is enough in the match right now. So I think we'll see Magnus pause for another minute or so. He'll take the rook and we'll see the game fizzle out. And it's all psychology today. We see Duda, who's a broken man, especially after yesterday's defeat. He's collapsed today against Wesley So. Giri feels broken as well. Also, the ghosts of that game last month that Mamedyarov destroyed Giri, that kind of best game of his career, as he described it, I think that's played a part in their match today. And Erigaisi, he's on a hot streak. He won his match. It's just momentum in chess. At the top level, it's all these 2-3% that you gain by being confident, or that you lose by being despondent. And yeah, right now that's really showing in these one-sided matches, these results. Yeah, Magnus, we're expecting him to take the white rook. As you said, you can just take this pawn back as well. You're completely fine as black. But not too much more calculation to be done.
No need to go into the depths when bishop takes rook, secures the draw.
Yeah, and we'll show this one more time, maybe just on the analysis board. OK, he has gone for it, and we might see a result any moment soon. The rook has disappeared. White has nothing better than a check. The black king will retreat. Another check. The black king will move, and a dance between the king and knight. This will end in a draw. And let's go back to the players. We'll see a result. We'll see Magnus confirmed as the winner of the tournament. If Prague repeats moves, anything else for White, and you're just 2 rooks down. So I don't think you can carry on safely.
Will we see a celebration for Magnus, do you think, after this game?
We'll see a smile.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. He won't celebrate till the end of tomorrow when the tournament's done, but now it's pretty much confirmed. If White brings his knight back to give a check, the position will repeat itself for a 3rd time. And there we go. It's a draw. Magnus beats Prague.
Magnus Carlsen is the winner of this match. He is the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022, and he is the winner of the Tour Finals. What a tournament it's been for the world #1. He's almost unbeaten. He's played some fantastic chess, and he finishes off in incredible style. Magnus Carlsen.
Prague, we'll start with you. Prague, a tough day in the office today. What happened in the match? Take us through.
Yeah, I think the first 2 games, in both games, I think I was the one who was pushing. And I think with little time, I was just playing terribly today. Like I was, I would say, not quick enough in a way, because I was just making a lot of mistakes in time trouble.
Did his opening choices surprise you?
Yeah, I knew it will come as a surprise. So in that way, there was no surprise. Yeah, I got a good position in first 2 games. And yeah, it's just bad that I didn't even make a draw in both the games.
All right, but playing against Magnus is never easy. But despite being surprised with his opening choices, you did manage to create chances and have good positions. But then there was this sudden collapse that would happen, and often around repetition. What was going on at that moment?
Yeah, I don't know. The first game, I think I had like better ways to play. But when I got to this position where I was a pawn down, I sacrificed a pawn on the queen side. Yeah, I was already, I think, playing for a draw. Like I was hoping for some trick to work, but yeah, there was some trick with knight f6 at some point, which I missed, and then I think it was just lost. Yeah, again, it was, I think, usually I would find it, so it, even with little time, but just I just missed it today, so something went wrong.
Well, one more match coming up. We hope you finish on a high. All the best for tomorrow, Prague.
Thank you.
Magnus, are you done? Sorry.
All right, we are waiting for the interview reactions from the winner of the Tour Finals, Magnus Carlsen. He is ready. Let's hear from Magnus Carlsen.
Magnus, you are the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour Final and the season as well. How are you feeling right now? Share with us.
I'm relieved. It was a tough match today, but I thought I did okay in the last game. I think his attack was maybe a bit stronger than I thought at first, so yeah, I had to play carefully, but I think I did it sufficiently.
You've had many event wins throughout the season. Is it special when you finish the season with a big win as well, with a round to spare?
Well, I have to do well tomorrow as well, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously big when we're gathered here. I've had a couple of poor events in a row, and to do well now is, yeah, it's a big deal.
Tell me one thing, ever since you've announced that you will not be playing the World Championship, does every tournament have that extra meaning for you, where you want to prove that regardless of which tournament you play, you're still the best player in the world?
Yeah.
Fair enough. And coming to the match today against Prague, wrapping it up in 3 games, openings we don't see very often from you. Was it easier than expected?
I mean, I think the score doesn't tell the whole story at all. I mean, the games were very tough. The second game, I was much worse to lost than first. Was just super complicated, which I ended up winning. Also, the last game, he put serious pressure on me, yeah, so it was not easy at all.
Okay, and we often see during the event you're out to other sporting events happening across the city. You were at the basketball game yesterday, a little inspired by the Warriors play?
Yeah, you'd think so, but it was a good game. It was good to see.
Okay, well, you've got one more match coming up. No pressure, or still going for, well, the big win on the last day?
Yeah, I want to win all my matches, of course. But obviously less pressure now.
Will you be celebrating today or too early to celebrate?
No, it's a bit too early to celebrate properly, that's for sure.
Okay, enjoy.
Wow, Magnus, what a move.
Okay,
Whoa.
well, okay.
Nice trick.
Magnus, this is dirty. He's just winning, Jovanka.
The king can't move.
Yeah, Magnus, he's retreated his queen. Okay, he stopped any checks. This is so clever. Magnus in full control once again. Magnus tricked Duda there.
Look at that smile on the champion's face. Magnus Carlsen wins the Charity Cup.
Wow, it's over. He is the winner of the FTX Crypto Cup.
2 threats and the White King is doomed.
Wow, Magnus Carlsen is up by 2 points now.
Magnus is in suffocation mode. He's that python wrapping around the victim.
One thing I would love to see in the tour is a beauty prize, the most brilliant game prize for each event, and Magnus is trying to achieve that now. Magnus really looking happy with himself. He's going to win the tournament.
And there it is. It's over. Ordinary Guys, he resigns, facing an impossible world #1, Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah.
Control.
Control.
Self-control.
Sign of a champion.
Magnus Carlsen takes the win.
Goodness me, it's death by 2 bishops here.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a quick game, a quick day. 3 games. Magnus wins them all.
Black has 3 winning moves.
He's so clinical. He's not giving Anish a single chance. He's just put that nail in the coffin.
Magnus Carlsen is the winner of the Tour Finals. He's also the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. He's played fantastic chess over the last few days. David, what can you say about Magnus's performance in the Tour Finals?
Well, he's still the best. That is clear. This is why it's a pity not to see him defend his world title, because he's clearly still another level above the rest. And yeah, he's just been so smooth, just controlling games, outfoxing his opponents, tricking them, playing fast when necessary. It's just been a masterclass from him.
Yeah. 14 wins for Magnus. in these 6 matches, 1 match to go. Jovanka, is he still by far the best player in the world?
It certainly looks that way. I mean, he said it himself. Every tournament, he's motivated. He wants to do the best he can. And as David said, you know, he's just been smarter than his opponents here. He's been quicker. He's been calmer. He's just done everything perfectly, even when it looks shaky.
Yeah. Incredible. And he finishes off with a match win against one of his biggest rivals this season on the tour, Pragnananda, winning 2 games there, Magnus Carlsen. The final one was a draw. Let's take a look at that game, David. What's happened?
The final game was a draw, and after many twists and turns, we saw Pragnananda give up 2 whole rooks. And it was in this position Magnus was asking the question, what are you going to do about this skewer? I'm going to win one of your rooks. And Prag did find a clever way out. He gave up one of the rooks by stepping his pawn forward to h5. And after the first rook was captured, he simply let the other rook fall as well. If the rook had slid across, threatening some checkmate threats, then Black could have escaped by just giving his king some breathing space, calmly stepping to the side, and there's no way to compensate for the sacrificed piece. But Prag had spotted he could take a pawn, and Magnus, maybe having some stronger options, found the safest way out. He took the rook, calling Prag's bluff, and White had nothing better than a check, hitting the king, another check, and the position repeating itself 3 times. A draw, but a fitting battle between 2 great warriors.
Definitely. Wow. Magnus Carlsen, he is just showing off in the tour finals. And we do have the puzzle of the day. I know you showed him that before, David, but I think maybe Tanya is able to give Magnus a puzzle. I'm not sure if it's that one. Let's go to San Francisco. What's happening?
Magnus, you've got this position set up. Does it look familiar at all?
Yeah, I think I saw it on a social media post earlier today, or something similar.
But do you know which game this is from?
Yeah, it's from Ronaldo against Messi, or very similar. Only the color complex has changed a little bit. But the original is my game against Nakamura from Norway Chess 2017. Very tumultuous event for me. I ended up with -1, and at several points during the tournament was I in risk of dropping to number 2 or 3 or even 4 in the world. So it was tough.
Which is why you remember it so well.
Yeah.
Now, when you spotted this on Twitter today, did you immediately realize which game this is?
No, I saw Peter Heine's tweet, and then I got the connection. But I saw his tweet before I saw the Ronaldo Messi thing.
This is from a post between Messi and Ronaldo. It is from a game between you and Hikaru. Is it fair to say Messi-Ronaldo comparison with you and Hikaru?
Not really, yeah, I mean, he's good at a lot of the stuff that I'm good at, for sure. So it's not the worst comparison in the world.
Ronaldo decided to be white here. You were white in your game. Were you glad with that it was Ronaldo playing with the white pieces and not Messi for this picture?
I would be okay with both.
All right. There we have it. Magnus recognizing the game. Hikaru versus Magnus from Norway 2017.
Yeah, or me against Hikaru.
Yeah.
Rather.
Thank you. That is fantastic, Tanya. This is the picture that was posted on social media today. A Louis Vuitton ad with Messi against Ronaldo in a game, and they have chosen a game between Magnus and Hikaru from Norway Chess 2017. And that is definitely not a coincidence.
No, I think they're choosing to pay Magnus and Hikaru a compliment with that decision. And yeah, what a picture. What, so many famous players all in one, all just captured on the chessboard. And yeah, Louis Vuitton making a good choice.
Definitely. Wow. Cool moment. And we had cool moments today as well. Let's take a look at the results from day 6 out of 7 in the tour finals. Wesley So winning 3 super impressive games against Jan-Krzysztof to win that match and take all 3 points. Arjun Erigaisi winning his 3rd match in a row, beating Liam Le in only 3 games today to take all 3 points. Mamedyarov winning the match against a struggling Anish Giri. And of course, Magnus Carlsen winning His final match of the season against Pragnananda. It's been a tough fight between those two the whole season. And Magnus finishes off with a win, winning 2 games and taking all 3 points. So the standings with only 1 day left in the tour finals. Magnus Carlsen has 17 points. He is the winner of the tour finals. But what can happen with second place? Is there still some drama there, Jovanka?
Yeah, definitely. You see, it's a race between Wesley So and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. And of course, Jan-Krzysztof Duda will meet none other than Magnus Carlsen tomorrow. So definitely the heat is on. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen because Wesley just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
It's a shame he didn't play like this at the beginning. And
Exactly.
he could have maybe fought Magnus.
Yeah. So Duda, basically, he has to beat Magnus Carlsen tomorrow to take second place. Wesley So is up against Anish Giri tomorrow. And if Duda loses, or, well, if Wesley wins that match, basically, he will take second place. And let's hear from Wesley after winning his match today against Jan-Krzysztof Duda.
Wesley, you won today's match against Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who was in second place, having a great event, wrapping it up in 3 games. Take us through the day.
Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, the first game with black, I was trying to equalize, but it went my way. Got a slight bare position out of the opening. And he probably could hold, but I managed to outplay him. And the second game was a very complicated Grunfeld, where objectively Jan should have won, because it was very complicated. I sacrificed pawn out the opening, but got very good compensation. But in the critical position with my knight on g6 very close to his king, I shouldn't have taken the rook, it turns out. Like, I should just take the center pawn and play this maneuver, rook a3, which I totally missed. And it turns out white is just close to winning. And, you know, he objectively should have won the game, but then he got really low into time. And he just started blundering one move after another. And as usual, if you win, whoever wins the first game here has a big advantage psychologically. And the third game, you know, was he just blundered in the opening. So it was nice.
Wesley, you mentioned that there's a big psychological advantage after winning the first game. What we also notice is that in the third game, in a must-win situation, it's super difficult for the player on the defense. And we often see the match ending in 3-0 because of desperation.
Yeah, for sure. Also against my match against Arjun, like he was only down 1 point, but he felt the pressure and he thought he had to play quickly and made a blunder. The problem is the match is so short. And it's super difficult to come back if you lose 1 game, especially 2 games. Then it's impossible. And yeah, players are so evenly matched here. You know, it's not so easy to get an advantage out of the opening. I mean, you can. I guess one thing, you can't force the issue every single game. Like you can't just say, oh, I want to win this game, and then you win, because you're probably gonna lose. So you just gotta take it objectively, play some good moves. You know, if your opponent makes a mistake, if he gets low on time, then you take advantage of such stuff. If they give you a gift, then you take it. But if you can't win, like my first 2 games against Prague were played super solid. If you can't win, then you just gotta keep it going, because as long as you don't lose a game, then you still have a lot of chances. I mean, if you go to the Blitz, it's fine. Anything can happen. If you go to Armageddon, anything can happen as well. So, yeah, it's nice. I mean, I learned a lot from my second match loss against Le Quang, because I lost a white game, and that's just very unreasonable. So.
I have to say, Wesley, the second game loss seems so far away, because you won 4 matches back-to-back. You must be feeling very confident right now going into the final game.
Yeah, I'm very pleased for sure. Also, Anish lost a lot of games. I mean, I don't know. I look at some Anish games, I just can't explain why he's losing so much. I mean, he's such a great player, and you know, he's seeded number 2 and something. But I also can explain why I'm winning so much. But it's a great feeling, certainly, because this is my 4th tournament in a row. I'm playing 5 tournaments in less than 2 months. The first 2 didn't go well, US Championships and the Fisher Random Reykjavik. So I didn't really have time to prepare seriously. I mean, I was trying to do some chess work in between tournaments, but there's a lot of traveling involved, and I'm also quite tired at this moment. Like, it's not so easy to sleep 11 hours a night. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of practice. I played some warm-up games this morning against a certain somebody, I think. And just trying to play my best chess. When things are clicking in this tournament, like I won, after match Lekwang, I won 8 games without losing anything. So it's just so amazing. And hopefully I can maintain it. Sometimes I play well, sometimes I don't. Can't really explain it.
We're really enjoying seeing you in form and playing well. You've got a game coming up, a match coming up tomorrow. We hope you finish well. All the best.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that.
Thank you, Wesley. Thanks.
Wesley So now with a winning streak of 6 games in the Tour finals, and he will fight for second place in the tournament tomorrow. I guess he's a big favorite now to take that second place.
Yep, his fate is in his own hands. Duda has a very tough match against Magnus, and yeah, Wesley, he's just on a hot streak, and it's going to be hard for Anish, I think, to stop him tomorrow.
Wesley, in this tournament, making his debut this season on the Tour, has he showed us, Jovanka, that we have missed him this season and that we hope he will be a player on the Tour in the 2023 version?
Absolutely. You know, he really took Magnus right to the brink. You know, Magnus had to play so resourcefully in their encounter, and now we just see him, you know, he just get better and better, and we definitely have missed him. We've missed that Tour rivalry, because without Wesley it does seem that Magnus has just been invincible. And you know, we see him winning the Tour like 1 tournament early, and now you see him winning the Tour final 1 round early. And Magnus needs competition.
Yeah, we need Wesley So back. Jan-Krzysztof Duda has given Magnus some very nice competition this season. He will end up in second place on the Tour overall, and he is now fighting to end up second place in the Tour finals. But tilting over the last few days, what is it about for Duda now, getting ready for the match against Magnus?
Yeah, Duda just needs to get the past out of his system. It's been a really difficult 2 days for him. Yesterday, he was on the brink of victory, but we saw those reactions from Duda, those emotions. He needs to get those out, and he should at least be trying to end the season on a high. It's been a great season for Duda, some great performances, some 2 tournament victories, and yeah, against Magnus, you can't play chess if you're tilted, simply. You have to be calm. And that's what Duda needs to focus on.
Yeah. And let's take a look at the matches coming up on the final day of the Tour finals and the final day of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. Wesley So, he is on a winning streak, and he will face a struggling Anish Giri, both on site in San Francisco. Mamedyarov won his match today, tomorrow up against Liam Le. Arjun Eric Gaisi, he's now won 3 matches in a row. He's going to finish against fellow teenager, fellow Indian, Prague. Jovanka, who do you hold as a favorite in that match?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them are incredibly competitive. Also, we see Arjun just playing himself into shape, and he seems to have gotten used to this very tough time zone that he's playing under. I don't know. I think I'm going to see tie breaks.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a fun way to end it. And of course, Magnus Carlsen, the winner of the Tour and the Tour finals against Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who will be fighting for second place. So what do you expect from that match, David?
Well, on current form, Magnus is a big favourite, but it's well known there is a phenomenon. Once you've achieved your goal, once you've won a tournament or got a norm, it's incredibly hard to focus and play chess. So I think we might see some surprises in that one. Both players will want to end on that high.
Definitely. It's going to be a fun final day of the Tour finals. Magnus Carlsen, the winner, playing in San Francisco. And tomorrow he can start the big celebration of being both the winner of the Tour finals and being the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. But we are hoping for action on the board on the final day as well. So join us again, as always, it's 8:45 CET in the Tour finals. Enjoy your evening wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.